There we go. I like that sound.
That
And an
click.
alakine.
An alakine. He was ready for e4.
Wow.
Oh,
With authority. Knight f6 immediately. So you could have even pre-moved it.
he could have. All
Okay,
right.
so we got a mainline alakine with knight f3. That is a rare guess at that level, isn't it?
Yeah.
And knight f3, of course, one of two main moves. c4 being the other main move in that position. Very, very interesting. I know Jeffery, I think I've seen him play the alakine before, though. Are you familiar with this line, David? How well do you know the
Oh,
alakine?
very, very poorly. The Alakine's one of those openings which you see rarely enough that you don't prepare like four different lines against it.
Exactly.
So I play c4 and then e takes d6 typically.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean and that's what makes it also effective is, these openings fall by the wayside. You never have a line against them. And they're not bad. Like the Alakine probably if black plays it very, very well, I don't think white's advantage is in any way vast.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
But if you've got a line that works for you, it's unlikely to get refuted and you're unlikely to need a new line 1 year later
right.
for your white
That's
repertoire.
true. That's very true. So we have castles, castles. I mean, generally in these positions, they can also occur from a Scandinavian with knight f6. That structure with, black's extremely solid, but white definitely has a little something here, I think.
All
Right.
right.
So
Bishop on f3. I like that square as a start.
yeah, so he's obviously just putting his bishop in a good square. Now, normally white chooses, I think, in these positions between c4 and c3, right? I mean, c4 chases the knight away, but white has to be careful not to overextend himself in the center.
Yeah, if you play c4, then the g7 bishop can become good.
Right.
I've been more afraid when looking at the knight f3 line, which I've done very little, but I've been more afraid of black playing bishop g4 and sort of like then there's a little more tension and some more different pawn structures that I have to worry about. If black would every time just put my knight on e5 for me, I think I would be more comfortable just playing this as white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here we see Jeffery kind of sinking into a think. I mean, c5 occurred to me as a possibility, but I don't actually think it is because of d takes c5. So let's see. No, he has played c5 just as I speak. So what is his intention against d takes c5? Interesting stuff here.
D takes c5. I would think just to take on e5 instinctively. I don't know how he's going to get anything back, but that would be my instinct to just take back and then...
Right. Well, I'm going to probably take on d5 with the queen.
Okay.
Because if I take with the bishop, maybe that bishop gets a little vulnerable. And maybe Jeffery wants like queen c7 or something after that and to hit the queen with rook d8. It seems on the dubious side, but I mean, I guess it's in the spirit of the Alakine. It's a little bit hacky, which can be a good thing. So Sam has gone along with it. I guess we're about to find out.
Yeah, he could only think so long about it when the logical move is to take.
Right, exactly. And he's taken with the bishop, so he's decided against queen takes d5.
And that decision he made before taking on c5 and made it pretty fast. Oh, well, there's a way to get a pawn back.
Queen c7 hitting both h2 and c5. Nicely calculated by Jeffery.
There goes anything I liked about white's position, Daniel.
Yeah. Right. Opening up the center. Also rook d8 in the mix here. Very annoying move, pinning the queen potentially. So the question is, which pawn does white preserve? I mean, can he even preserve the c5 pawn if he had tried. I still don't get why Sam didn't take with the queen, to be honest with you, David. I feel like Black has solved all of his opening problems, as you've indicated.
Yeah. I don't know. If you take with the queen, Black can trade and get a tempo with rook d8. Maybe there was some instinct like that's giving Black a tempo, but it almost feels like he wasn't yet like zoned in enough to have calculated queen c7 maybe.
And that happens sometimes when you encounter, these kinds of unexpected openings. You might still be going through the motions because normally, in move 8, you're still in theory, but here you have to calculate, as you said, and sometimes you're just not up to the task. And here we see Sam already eating into his clock. It might not seem like a lot of time spent, but it is, because remember, this is a 15-minute game. So he's gone h3. He's gone h3, and we're expecting Jeffery, I guess, to just take on c5.
Yeah. Although, as you say, the move rook d8 could be looked at as well, depending on whether Jeffery's still in preparation.
Yeah. Rook d8, I was thinking maybe queen to f3, trying to induce a weakness with e6, although I'm sure that's also quite fine for Black. But my guess is Jeffery would probably take on c5. And he can play rook d8 later, although you're going to have to watch for bishop takes f7 traps once you do take on c5.
Yeah.
So Jeffery taking his time here. How long have you known Sam, David? Did you basically know him since he started? Because those of you in my stream, and of course we're all from the same area.
Yeah.
San Francisco Bay Area. So how well do you remember Sam, like when he was starting to play?
My first memory of Sam, he was playing in the California State Championships, the junior high section. And I think he'd already been playing for a couple months, but he was pretty new. He was maybe like 1200 or something, which is kind of about where he was born.
Right, and where he is now.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And I was actually the private teacher of a friend of his who was already, 1650 or something like that, the number 1 or number 2 seed, and like in the section there, and someone who was, fostering Sam's interest in the game. And that's where I met him. He was at the chessboard playing with Aviv and grinning and having a great time.
Yeah, and Sam actually is a very late learner by modern standards. I think he played his first tournament at age, 11 or 12.
Yeah, 11.
Which you just don't see much anymore. And this attests to something we were talking about off stream, which is Sam's work ethic, which is really famous among I would say, most chess players. Sam will be the first to tell you that he might not be the most talented player out of comparable players of comparable rating, but he's definitely one of, if not the hardest worker among every chess player that I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was already ambitious at that point. He was like somewhere between 11 and 12 years old and 11 and 1200, but he already was like trying to be, the champion of whatever was around him.
Right, exactly. Whatever it may be. The airplane that we were flying into a tournament. And knight a6 by Jeffery. So he's trying to take the pawn while also developing his pieces. So he's probably trying to take it with his knight. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that's what his idea is.
Yeah. Sometimes you play a move like c6 in some openings.
Exactly what I was going to say. You can try to ruin Black's pawn structure. If you're already dying, you might as well take something out with you.
Yeah.
And after b takes c6, thank you, Bridget. Bishop c4. I mean, I guess what Jeffery wants is to have another tempo, and he could maybe park his bishop on the long diagonal and then go c5, open things up. I kind of like his position here, to be honest with you. I definitely think the opening has been a success in the early going.
Yeah. Because actually, if we throw in c6 for white, even though it sort of misplaces the knight on a6 a little bit and messes with the pawn structure, Black's also potentially going to play rook b8 quickly, and it's not obvious how Sam develops his queen side. A little ironic twist since he set up his bishop on f3 to try and complicate Black's queen side development 3 moves before.
How about them apples? Exactly. So if I were white here, I would consider just playing knight c3 and just prioritizing development, saying, okay, I'm not going to get a better position out of the opening, but let me at least complete my development. It can be easy to, to get caught up here and try to prove why you went into this. And in doing so, you could make, sort of a perilous situation even worse. So, yeah, looks like they really want to play a bullet game. That's a pretty steady time consumption here. Only 11 moves in. Sam going to dip below 10 minutes. I mean, I don't mind watching some bullet. And both of them are good blitz players. I think maybe Jeffery has the small edge, but not by too much. I think they're both incredibly strong blitz players and bullet players.
Is that something that you do, Danya, when you're not playing yourself? Do you actually watch other people play bullet?
I enjoy watching people play blitz in general. I love watching blitz, and I love watching bullet. So whenever, like Ali Reza and Magnus have a match, or Andrew has a match, I'm always, face to the screen. And it's less, I'm just as entertained, I think, as everybody else is. And I obviously have the fact that I can follow the action, let's say, even in a 30-second game. So it's just so incredibly fun. I mean, I just love watching games in general, and the faster pace, the better.
That makes sense.
So knight c4, here we see Sam developing his knight through a3, which makes perfect sense. He's bringing it toward the center, dislodging that bishop from e5.
Yeah. Yeah, so playing c6 wasn't worth the trouble it caused black, because it was also causing white trouble.
Correct.
This position's pretty weird and complicated, actually. There's sort of no pawn center for either player, but whose pieces get prime real estate is pretty funky. Like the white bishop on d5 barely has squares,
Yeah, it looks good, but it's kind of standing in the way, right? And rook d8, we talked about earlier, can be super unpleasant. So I suppose the question for black is, does he play something like bishop g7, or does he try to trade bishops with bishop f4? Because that might actually not be so dumb. He's played bishop g7. Okay, so he's gone for the sort of conventional. Now I think queen f3 by Sam probably makes some sense, although you have to reckon with e6 in that case.
What would be our plan there?
So if queen f3, e6, I guess white can go bishop e4, but I wouldn't want to give up that bishop necessarily so easily. He's done it.
He's done it.
Maybe he intends e6, bishop f4.
Your instincts were right.
Bishop f4. I mean, it just looks like, you're also immobilizing that rook on f8, and you're piling up along the long diagonal. So bishop e6 by Jeffery, I think, would be sort of an equalizing move, or bishop f5. But e6 definitely needs to be calculated. And that's another thing I like about watching games, David, is I don't have to do the calculating. I can watch the players suffer, and everybody knows I like that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm going to take the first moment of perhaps a couple today to mention that this is a fundraiser for the U.S. Olympiad team. So, yes, these players would be playing training games in any case, but no, we wouldn't normally get to watch the training of the team. And the U.S. Olympiad team this year apparently has a need for some funds for training purposes. The U.S. only enters the competition in a bit. I don't know exactly what day. Donnie and I were wondering about it, which day the U.S. actually joins the competition, but they could use some funds, and so Sam and Jeffrey are doing this to raise funds for the rest of the team. There's a link to the GoFundMe page of the Olympiad team. I'm the only one who can send links here, so you guys know it's a real link. And not some imposter trying to take away your money for nothing. So bishop e6 was played. The attempted equalizing move, and the knight comes to e3.
Right, so he's supporting that bishop to on d5.
And I will never know why e6 doesn't work, or how to calculate it that fast myself as white. If you've got an instinct, like I should play queen f3 here, and then you're like, but what about e6? Like, I'll never figure it out in a blitz game. I'll just have to play something else.
Yeah, and I mean, you want to be very careful about the positional risks that you take, because e6 is a very risky move. And Jeffrey decides to just play, a little bit safer. Nothing wrong with that. I think he's going to be proven right. So, there's this battle going on over the d5 square, and there's a tempting move c4, but that relinquishes potentially also the d3 square. Although in that case, white takes on e6, and he ruins black's pawn structure. So maybe c4 is fine, but it's positionally risky. To weaken that d3 square like that.
Yeah. And I thought of the same, of sort of like a similar thing, maybe c3, because I'm worried about the bishop on g7. And then again, I was like, but what am I going to do about d3? That's going to be weak for a long time.
Right, exactly.
So
and
we can't move our c pawn, and we can't move. What are we left with? Rook d1, rook b1.
Rook d1 looks very reasonable. And you go c3. So yeah. David Shankland. I think he's changing his name.
Yeah.
So he's blunting the bishop on g7. The drawback being there's this d3 hole that's been created. And the question, I guess, for Jeffery is, does he take on d5 and maybe go queen e5 and just clarify the situation? Or does he find a way does he do something subtle like rook to d7 maybe, and double on the d file and try to dislodge the bishop while also making helpful moves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the bishop on c1's lagging a little bit. The d file is awkward for Sam right now to contest. One thing that I look at as an example is I imagine trading on e6 proactively as white to play knight d5 and develop the bishop. But then, bishop e6, knight e6, knight d5, queen d7 or something, and I feel a little bit awkward about playing rook d1 and getting pinned that way.
Right. Yeah, I feel like the game is somehow going to be decided, I don't know, in something concerning the d5 square. That's going to play a role. And bishop to d7, so he drops it back entirely, once again opening up the possibility of going e6. And remember, earlier white had bishop f4 against e6. Here there's the knight on e3 that's actually blocking the bishop from coming out to f4. So I think e6 has indeed become a positional threat.
All right.
How does Sam deal with it?
I've got an immediate idea for white here of knight to g4. How does that feel?
I was actually thinking the same thing. Now, if knight g4, you're potentially aiming for the h6 square. And if black goes e6, I feel like you might even have some sort of a sacrifice.
Right.
Like knight f6 check might even actually work.
Yeah.
Although it's close. So I like it. And against knight g4, actually stopping the threat of knight h6 is not that easy. I don't want to take on g4 because I don't want to part ways with that bishop. But maybe black will have to. I'm pretty sure black has something there, but it's not that easy. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, so failing something that we haven't noticed yet, knight g4 looks pretty strong. It's not hard to find because the c1 bishop is like yelling at the knight from behind. Like, come on, move it.
Yeah, it's a very well-defined, like the objectives for both players are very well-defined. And it might be the case that Sam is calculating the proceedings of knight g4, e6, but he went for this intuitively last time that he allowed e6. So I feel like, as the Russian expression goes, having said A, you have to say B. You have to just go for it. And he does. So knight h6 check is a threat because black really doesn't want to give up that bishop on g7, right? That would be a positional disaster and a tactical disaster given the king situation. So we'll see what Jeffery does here. He could take the knight on g4, and then play something like e6. I don't think he's in big trouble, but I feel like he's probably playing for an advantage already at this point. Yeah, so. And a move has been made. So he's gotten bishop. Whoa. I think that's a mouse slip. Whoa. Bishop h6.
Uh-oh.
Sam looking bemused. I'm not sure what he was trying to do.
He'll say something about it.
Yeah, probably h5 or something on that flank was what he intended to play. And Sam, it looks like very graciously repeating the position.
Mm-hmm.
That's the spirit.
So it's a nice spirit. That's the spirit I'd like to have. It doesn't replicate what the Olympiad conditions are liable to be like.
Right, yeah. Well, get the mouse slips out now, during the friendly.
Yeah.
But that's just, mouse slips are just another variable of online chess that has to be considered. I don't think I've ever mouse slipped in like a high profile tournament, online tournament, like the Pro Chess League. I did have some auto queen stories where I was trying to frantically disable auto queen with like 20 seconds left on the clock. So I've definitely had my share of those. But do you remember any such incidents, David, maybe in the old US Chess League days when like a mouse slip cost the team a match?
Yeah. I think so. There were a lot of players. There still existed like plenty of master players at the time who were not familiar playing online. Like they were coming to play online for the US Chess League, sort of like for the first time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that kind of stuff would happen. I remember that, Greg and Arun had to make rulings. People were waiting sometimes.
Yeah, I remember those days. I remember going to the Mechanics Institute Chess Club on those desktop computers from the 70s to play those games. But there was a certain camaraderie. And what we're talking about, by the way, most people in the chat have probably heard of the Pro Chess League. The US Chess League was the predecessor to the Pro Chess League, which was only within the US. And unlike in the Pro Chess League, the cities, that people played for, they were normally actually from those cities. And I don't mean that in a bad way. That's just objectively the big difference.
Yeah.
You didn't have people like Magnus playing for Chicago, but there were a couple of like powerhouses. I mean, I think San Francisco won the very first edition of the Pro Chess League. Is that right?
We did win at some point, but I'm not sure which year it was. But there was a year we won. Sam and Danya have each played board 4 on that team.
Yep.
And then eventually board 1 on that team.
Yeah, I remember watching Vinay and all these board. When I was on board 4, I had, I was very starstruck. Yeah. But then, then you're on board 3 and then board 2. And before you know it, you're called up for duty.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to get Sam Sevion as the other player for our Pro Chess League team. So that in any given match, all 4 players playing for us would be board 4s of the Mechanics team. So our team would be like the board 4, or 4 board 4s would be like the name of our team if we're the US amateur teams and we're giving it a name. We'd just be all board 4s.
The San Francisco board 4s.
Yeah.
I like it.
But unfortunately, he lives on the East Coast now and got a nice offer from Montclair and then New York or something. But it's fine. I'm glad he got a great offer.
Yeah, he's of course very, very strong, talented young player, and I think he's from the Bay Area, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
like I remember him when he was little.
Yep.
Or was it? No, it was the Bay Area.
Yeah, I remember seeing him playing when he was tiny. You too. Sam was never quite that tiny, as you said. He started a little bit later.
Right, he started late. I remember those.
Jeffrey's really in the tank about this knight g4, huh?
He really is down to 3 minutes. I feel like he's got to make a decision fast. Bishop takes g4, perhaps. JDD, thanks for the gifted. Bishop takes g4 and e6, and just bite the bullet because Sam is very, very good at putting pressure. I think Jeffrey's calculating h5. I think he's calculating h5, and if h5, knight h6 check, then we go king h7. Knight takes f7, and then something like e6. And it's, this is what I mentioned, David, just watching people suffer. Like, I don't want to calculate this myself. This is torture. And I think he might actually go for it. Because psychologically, when you spend this long thinking about something, you really don't want to, at the last second, say, it doesn't really work. You kind of just want to go for it.
Right. What else are you going to do at some point?
At this point, yeah, with like 1 minute on the clock, you've got to go for the daring continuation. So
But
I'm anticipating h5.
The knight seems like it could easily come out to g5 with check, right?
Right, but that bishop on d5 would be...
Right.
I guess my idea is, so after knight takes f7, e6,
Yeah.
if you move the bishop away, I'm going to go king back to g8. And I'm going to use the king to pin the knight. But in that position, there's bishop f4, so the chaos continues.
Mm-hmm.
He's played e6 at last. So he's played the other sort of topical move. And white has actually two possibilities here. He can go knight f6 check or knight h6 check. What do you think about those moves? Or even bishop f4.
Yeah, you can go knight f6, knight h6, bishop f4, and probably even bishop h6 would be another candidate move. Because bishop h6, I had the idea pawn takes bishop, bishop g7. Oh, but then there's bishop takes g4. So
right, very important intermediate move. Otherwise, it's this checkmate. Knight h6 and queen f6. So now Sam is the one with a choice. He's played bishop f4 very quickly. Queen b6 by Jeffery. It just smells of some sort of tactic for white.
Yeah, those
but
squares.
I can't put my finger on it. And if Sam doesn't have anything concrete, things might start rolling back. He's gone bishop b3. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of said, okay, I'm going to give up that pawn, but I'm going to keep all my pieces on the king side and maybe trade those dark squared bishops off at some point.
Yeah, this looks good enough for white to me.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Sam, he has 3 minutes more on the clock, and that is huge in a position as sharp as this. It is absolutely huge.
So now, does Jeffery calculate trying to grab a pawn on b3, or does he just play some defensive move quickly?
I think he's got to just do it, because I don't see how you defend against this in the long term. I think you're going to have to defend against it in sort of the battlefield, if you know what I mean.
Yep. All right. He went for knight e4, so he just played some defensive move. And what Danya's saying, people, is that if you try and defend this position without provoking decisive action, if you try and defend it over 20 to 30 moves, your odds are much lower than if you try and defend it over the next 5 moves by forcing something.
Exactly. So you just might as well, say, okay, if I get checkmated, then I get checkmated. H5 now by Jeffery. So he's trying to seal the gates to the kingdom.
Oh,
the gates to the kingdom.
He's got bishop f6 against knight e3.
Oh, my lands. That traps the queen.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
So maybe he's also trying to win the game here. And there's no f3 because it's pinned. So maybe bishop e3 is what Sam will have to play here. He just needs to keep the ball in the court since Jeffrey's got a minute.
Exactly. And knight h6 check meets with king h7, and white simply introduces more problems to himself.
Yeah.
Wow. So I didn't grasp the zen of the position. I didn't realize that the queen is so close to getting trapped. That's it. And Sam has played bishop e3, indeed.
Yeah. And then after queen c7, you throw in some move like f3 with the idea hg4, fe4, and it's messy.
And f3, knight g3, you go knight f6 check. Just like the doctor wrote it up.
Yeah.
I feel like I agree. He's got to do it. I just don't see anything else, because if you move the knight to h2, well, I don't even know if that's being considered. Black has bishop f6 and bishop e5.
Yep.
Boom.
Yeah.
Man. Now, what about f3? What does black do there? You know what move is interesting is queen g3. f3, queen g3.
Mm-hmm.
And if I trade queens, I feel like white can resign because he's got 2 pieces hanging at once. How does white avoid that?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question.
I feel like big time trouble brewing here for Sam.
Yikes.
So.
Oh, I saw it on his face for a second there. He just saw some line that didn't work for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that wincing motion.
Yeah.
That all chess players know.
Gotta go look for another one.
I feel like f3 is just absolutely forced.
And with a sigh, he goes knight h6 and repeats.
Indeed, knight g4 trying to hold things together. Not easy, of course, to find the crushing blow here for Jeffery. f5 is possible, though. What about the move f5?
It does everything the position kind of needs, right? Take even more space. The black pieces are like overflowing, right? The rooks. It's like you're up 2 rooks at that point once you play f5.
There we go.
Yeah, a minute
Tightening
on the clock,
the
but he
noose.
didn't care. Bangs that one out.
And 1 minute enough with the 10-second increment here.
Now we're
f3 once again seems forced, but queen g3 might be even more overwhelming than it was, with the king being as safe as it is.
Yeah. Maybe I get desperate too fast, but I often in blitz games play moves like bishop takes e6 here, and then like fg4, hg4. And then just... Oh my gosh, Sam is so mad.
Yeah, he's got that Sam Shankland, I am not happy with the way things are going expression.
Yeah.
By the way, even knight g3 here should probably do the trick, but when you have a minute left, and there we go.
Knight
Wait a
g3,
minute.
bishop f4? Knight e2.
Knight e2. Oh my goodness. Oh, or queen takes f4. Oh, that queen takes f4 is the ultimate in your face.
It's the ultimate, like, oh wait, I missed knight g4. Then white plays knight g4. You go, oh.
Exactly. Crushing that hope.
Yeah. Yikes, yikes, yikes.
Sam biting his lip here. This is looking very, very bad. Yeah. He's gone rook fe1. I mean, which is what he has to do. But now f takes g4 simply wins a full piece. And as you pointed out, David, the game is not quite over yet. You know, there's some freak chances against black's king. Jeffery has just this one problem to solve, right? He's going to untangle himself somehow.
Yeah. His knight is temporarily trapped. If we're looking for something for Sam to be happy about, like,
right,
there could be some scenario where you play bishop f2 here if black does nothing.
Or bishop c2 and gh.
Okay. Or bishop c2, yeah.
Okay. Whoa. Bishop takes f3.
Yeah.
Oh, my lands.
I was expecting something like that. Because
it does make sense.
I often am in these kind of the desperate side of these kind of positions, and then what really breaks me is when the opponent just like gives the piece back to tear you apart because your rooks aren't out yet, and you know you lost the piece because you had some kind of problems, and then they just give it back and show you your problems.
And black is up a pawn, so he has a devastating attack up a pawn. Very practical decision by Jeffery.
If rook d1, bishop
not to
d1.
mention, right, I guess that's the idea. And perhaps rook f8 should be considered. Rook d to f8. There we go. But now Sam has a respite. You know, what about bishop c2 here? Because that creates the precedent of maybe taking on g6 after that. Where exactly is the win if we see bishop c2? I feel like Sam's got to play fast. That's his only chance. Maybe make Jeffery panic a little bit. Maybe bishop takes c6, honestly, but I doubt that is the way.
Right. It seems like just another dangling piece.
He does it.
But
he does it, and it makes sense. He's trying to kind of perhaps unsettle Jeffery, although queen e5 looks very strong here to me. And there we go. Bishop f2, there's like knight e2 check. Yeah, this idea of knight e2 check, I think, is crushing.
That move seems to hurt. What about... Nope, that doesn't help. Nope, that doesn't really help.
Right. If you move the bishop from e3 anywhere, there's knight e2 check interception, and black's king.
Yeah, I wanted to
is
play
the
like
safe one there.
Queen e7 or something, but
ooh, with the idea of potentially something like bishop g8, but that bishop on g7, right, guarding the queen.
Right. Well, and then I'm just going to recapture my bishop on e3 at least, and play an endgame with rook against 2 pieces is like
I see what you're saying.
The best swindle I have, which still loses probably.
Right.
Well, now they're going to get their first experience living on a 5-second increment. I doubt that they've really experienced this. That's like, I think, a big piece of the importance of good training games. Like, you can know anything you want about chess, but like, what do you know about playing a game on a 5-second increment, right? I mean, every event has its own thing, and you really need to replicate that very faithfully.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely do. And there's nothing like just training for this. Now, Jeffery bringing his king out to g6, but it appears that Sam's king is still the one who's going to get checkmated. Now, Sam can give a bunch of checks here, but the king just tucks itself away on g8. I just don't see anything here. Now Sam lower on the clock than Jeffery.
There's bishop c5 or something, or bishop d4.
Ooh, now look at this tricky guy. Knight e2, there's knight takes, but Jeffery on top of the situation.
Yeah.
Takes d4 and knight e2 to follow, I think, just ends it.
Ooh, knight e2 is very...
Or this, very nice. Knight e2 check with a fork. Sam trying everything he can try, but Jeffery can just take the rook.
Rook e1.
Take the rook.
That's pretty simple as moves go.
And I think we're going to see resignation after queen d6, rook f6, or this. King h6 is the fastest, I think, and then covering with a knight on h5.
That's good.
And maybe blundering the queen on e1.
Yeah.
Sam not very happy.
Here's where for like a 1 second increment, you might mess it up. Jeffery, it's good that he's spending 3 or 4 seconds now and then.
Yeah, 1 second increment, you think you can add time to your clock, but you really can't. Like, that is the fastest second. It's like the seconds literally go by faster when you've got less than 5 of them. Jeffery expertly navigating the treacherous waters. Well, I'm not sure they're so treacherous, but
King d6,
the only thing you
got
to watch out for, or king d7, queen d5, and king c8, queen c5. But Jeffery heading for like e8, it's really only a question of time. There's always some way to escape the checks in a position like this. King f7. And now the queen comes into the rescue.
Right, on e6 or e7.
Yep. I think Sam's going to resign here.
Yeah.
And the players with 5-minute breaks after each game, I mean, these are very charged games. They might seem like just rapid games, but both of them are really putting in their effort here. So they need to recharge their AA batteries.
Yeah.
And there we see it. Game 1 in the books, a win for Jeffery.
Got it.
So what did you think of the game? First impressions.
You know, I feel like it turned around on us a little bit. We were thinking that Jeffery was getting too low on time, and then suddenly knight e4 turned out to be amazing.
Right. I mean, he spent 5 minutes on e6, right? And for Sam, where exactly was the mistake? I'm not sure. You know, one thing he could have tried after knight e4 to play queen h2. And my idea is to keep the threat of bishop c7 alive. And, you know, I don't think this is that impressive from an objective standpoint, but it keeps, you know, the tension in the position. After h5, the position really clarified, and Jeffery was able to play both fast and accurately, which he managed to do with expert precision.
Mm-hmm.
So impressive display in time pressure for sure.
h4 ended up being such a bad square.
Right, incredible. I mean, just that queen trapped on the side of the board like this with so many pieces left is pretty unusual.
Wow, really nice. And bishop takes f3. I mean, I think that's a really good way of trying to convert it.
It is. I love that move. And, you know, I'll tell you, I don't think he calculated it. I think it was largely an intuitive sack. He just saw that he was up a pawn. His king was much safer than White's. And he was saying, I'm just going for it. I'm not going to try to, like, cling to my piece right here.
Right.
I'm going to just go for it. And, yeah, so in the second game, Sam is, of course, going to be black Jeffery with the white pieces. And what do you think is Sam's mentality going to be? Is he going to go, you know, balls to the wall and just go after it, or do you think he's going to play solid chess as he can do extremely well with black? He's very tough to beat in part because of his amazing opening preparation.
Yeah, it's hard to guess exactly what his training goal is here. That'd be something we'd have to ask in the interview. But I think that normally Sam's very respectful about being black. Like, he believes black should know their place and their role. and not sort of like play crazy or coffee house or whatever.
Yeah, and he had a streak, I think, of 70 or so games without a loss, which is just absurd, honestly. And I think Sam in the early stages of his career was a little bit more on the wild side, but when he started playing the Slav against D4 with Black, he acquired just rock solidity, and he started playing the Caro-Kann as well against E4. Just when he doesn't go crazy, and he doesn't go crazy very often, he's such a hard player to beat.
Yeah.
So here we see they are off onto their second game.
Yeah, might be that Slav you mentioned.
Indeed, C4, E6. So we see one of those, I don't even know what this is called. It's like a cross between a Zukertort and an English. It's taking on the contours of a Zukertort for white.
Yep.
And now Sam needs to decide, is he putting his pawn on C6, or is he going to play for C5 and maybe play B6?
Yeah.
I personally have always liked B6 in these positions. I like my bishops to be fianchettoed much like whites.
Yeah.
And developed much like whites.
Yeah, that's what I would expect him to do. And I saw a recent game of Carlsen's where someone tried, knight F3, E3, do you know what I'm going to play? It's kind of like a Queen's Gambit, but I won't say so. And he just played it like Queen's Indian, B6, bishop B7 right away. And I guess it was against Svidler. Yeah, and he just got such an easy game.
Right. It seems to me, and correct me if maybe I'm missing the mark here, but if you watch like the opening fashion shifts in the last couple of years at top level chess, these like knight F3, E3 openings, it seems like of all the things to prioritize, flexibility has essentially gone to the top of the list these days. Like, it's not that these openings are necessarily the most dangerous, but they're very flexible. Like, you don't put your cards on the table. You can play D4. You can not play D4. And it seems to me that a lot of players are choosing these kinds of systems over, even over super defined openings such as the Berlin, which of course is still very popular, but it's not quite as hot as it was like a couple of years ago even.
Yeah. Actually, I know what's going on here with Sam thinking. He since this is a public match, he's trying to pick like a third-rate theoretical option instead of like one of his most important theoretical options, because Sam's very familiar with this position. He recently did a course about this opening, so he's trying to
remember which moves would I give a question mark to, and he takes on C4, which is a very unusual. Well, I guess it will be accompanied with a timely C5.
Yeah,
because you certainly don't want to let white develop a monstrous center by pushing his pawn to E4.
Right.
Oh,
he wants to not throw the game, but pick, pick something that doesn't give it all away. So
now look at Jeffery's time, 15:32. He's played instantly the whole game, and his development mirrors. It's basically a symmetrical position with the exception of the pawn center. The development is identical. Now Sam preparing E5.
Okay.
And it's just in time because white is ready to play E4, but then black is ready to play E5 and carving out a couple of very good squares for his pieces if that happens. I don't think Jeffery's going to play E4.
Okay.
My guess would be something like Queen C2, and then maybe E5, Knight G5, something, on the sharp side.
Okay. Interesting. I was wondering what kind of other options there were for white. I was thinking of E4, E5, C5. Because when you said he wasn't going to just play something normal, I was like, what else can white do?
Right, exactly. What kind of sacrifices are there in this position? And then C5 and D5, something like that.
Yeah.
And perhaps putting the knight on C4 with positional pressure.
Yeah, just kind of blocking that C5 square. And then you could play D5. Honestly, you could even just trade everything off on E5 and play that position too. But I would rather play D5 to try and, make the bishop on B7 slightly bad. Get black awkwardness.
Definitely. I agree. Yeah, that's interesting. What you don't want to do is take everything on E5 once black plays E5, because white's going to be left with, well, number one, black's going to have this bishop on B7. whereas white's not going to have the counterpart bishop on b2, and then the pawn structure is going to be ruined. So, this is the biggest problem Jeffery needs to solve in his position here, and we'll see how he tackles it.
Yeah. I found that sometimes the exact variation that I think you don't want to play turns out to be strangely good.
So maybe like e4 and d5
this
is
just
actually
keeps
not
happening to me. It's like I would never play this position because, isolated pawn, bad bishop on d3, whatever. And then in that position, somehow they play knight f3, rook e8, e5, and then and then it'll be like the one thing that I was trying to avoid would have been good, and everything that I did to avoid it was bad.
Right. It's so funny how that does happen. Like every assumption you made about the position has nothing to do with the reality of the evaluation.
Right. Because it ends up just being like you have to actually calculate that position, like put it on the board, try one or two moves, and realize if it's good or bad.
Yeah, those are, and funny thing is like there's a whole category of problems where the first move you rule out for whatever reason, positional or tactical, is going to be the solution, and like it. So you can almost use that as a crutch sometimes. Yeah. I think Dvoretsky would drive me insane because he's got so many problems like that where every positional insight that you make about whatever position you're solving turns out to be a red herring, and it's just misleading
you. Yeah.
So
it's like he's an evil author, right? He's just like trying to change your opinion about everything. Prove to you that there is no positional chess.
Evil, I like it.
Bow down.
Rook b1 by Jeffery.
Yeah.
And his idea is to meet e5 with c5. So he's x-raying the bishop on b7.
Yeah. That would probably lose an entire piece. Well, there might be a bishop hanging on d3 at the end. It may not even work.
To our theme, yeah. So it takes, I'm playing on my board. So take everything on e5. And then perhaps knight to c4. Right, attacking the rook. But then rook to d5. But okay. Yeah, I mean, it's messy there.
Right.
I think Jeffrey's probably done a good job calculating. I still think white's got the initiative there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But everything you think is a lie, right? Now,
exactly.
White could trade on h7, play queen c2, rook b7. I wouldn't.
Trade on. Say that again.
In the line after rook to d5.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sack the bishop on h7 to get a pawn, then queen c2, and rook b7.
The issue would be knight h7, though, right?
Ugh, yes, that would be. That would be.
But actually, watch the twist. Bishop h7 is actually correct.
What?
You're just not kidding. Time. You just. I'm kidding. I think it's not quite.
That's the end of the turning road. All right. After deep thought, he played c5, which pretty much rules out c5 by white. So that's logical.
He's trying to make the rook on b1 look dumb.
Yeah.
So I like Sam's position. I think he's done a good job here. He's developed sensibly. Also, he's vacated the c7 square for his queen.
Yeah.
And again, I just have a predilection for pieces that aim toward the opponent's king in such a harmonious fashion. Mm-hmm. Whereas I feel like somehow white's pieces, although they're developed identically, there's something about white's center that makes his pieces seem less imposing than black's. I don't know if it's an optical illusion,
right,
or there's actually something to that.
Some kind of bias that you have, right? You're like
deeply held.
I see black bishops pointed this way, and I see white bishops pointed this way, and somehow there's some difference.
Indeed.
If they end up playing rook c1 with the b1 rook and rook d8 with the e8 rook, they might still be able to just transpose to, if Sam had never gone for e5. Because I think normally black would play c5. I haven't seen rook e8, e5 as the plan there before. I think normally black would have just played c5, queen c7, rook fd8, rook ac8.
No, that's true. Yeah, and he reorients himself here. So queen c7, I think, is sensible. But okay, I mean, black is winning. Okay. We need to get Kramnik over here. He'd tell us how black would be winning.
Right. If he were black, not if he were white.
But if he were white, then white would be winning.
Right.
It's Oceania is at war with Eurasia, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Whoever Kramnik is the one side that's winning.
Yeah. So, Vlad, what's the evaluation here? He's like, which side am I playing?
No, but I mean, okay, I think no, but the win is quite simple, and I think he starts a lot of sentences with no but. You know, that's another Russian thing.
No but.
It's like, oh, but okay is one thing. Okay, I mean, but also no, but no, but I mean, no, but I mean, okay, no, but I mean, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know where that even comes from.
I would just replace all those words with ums. That would be my version of that sentence.
Right. I think that because in Russian, okay, you like, even I just said it. Like when I talk about Russian, I say okay, but there is no equivalent. Well, there is an equivalent, which is just good. And people say okay, right? Literally, like they do in every language.
Yeah.
But there's nothing inherently, like there's no emphasis placed on the word okay. And yet I feel like chess players in general disproportionately say okay. Thank you, Jem, for the 1,000 bits. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Do you get this? You get this? I mean, I know you get the same impression. I mean and okay. When do you use these outside of chess? Like especially the words I mean.
In an awkward situation where you're saying something and it's repeatedly offending the person you're talking to. I mean, not like you, but you know, people like, well, not people like you. I mean, people who
I'm very
share
offended.
one care. Okay, I give up. You say I mean like 3 or 4 times before you give up on trying to stop digging your hole.
Right, exactly. And then, yeah. No, I mean, okay. Yeah. In Russian, M Wizard says in Russian, you can say yes, no, and it means no. That's true. So you can juxtapose literally. You can say yes, no, but it literally means something like, well, it just means, it just means no.
Everyone in my family, when I say something, says no, you're right. So no apparently can also mean yes.
Yeah, you know, there's this old joke about elections in Belarus. And well, you know, it's a bit of an autocracy, and the current president / dictator Lukashenko.
They just had elections this week, so this is the topic.
Exactly.
Story.
Yeah. So I've heard this from, I think, some adult friend years ago, and I didn't appreciate it then. So the joke goes something like, you know, they finally held democratic elections in Belarus, and you know, they distributed to great fanfare all of the ballots, and the ballots were structured as follows. They read, you know, do you mind it if Alexander Lukashenko becomes president for the next term? And the two choices were yes, I don't mind, and no, I don't mind. I heard it in Russian, but it actually translates well.
But it works out.
It works out, yeah. There's a lot of like Russian jokes that are only funny contingent upon like knowing a bunch of references to living in the Soviet Union, but some are just funny independently.
Yeah. All right, Queen C7.
I'll share another one in a bit as Jeffrey is ruminating over. I mean, maybe something like H3 here. Just kind of taking care of that pawn for the future would be interesting.
Same with H6 for black.
Right, it's a copycat kind of position.
So where does the action eventually come from here?
Yeah, it's hard to say, like, what's going to happen to the center. Is anybody going to flinch? And if so, who will it be? Well, it's maybe white does take on c5 at some point to open up that bishop. But, man, the weaknesses in the pawn structure that introduces is worrisome for sure.
I'm sort of expecting hanging pawns at some point, and even then, I don't know what comes next from that.
Right, C, D, E, D being the precursor. Yeah. So the other joke that, okay, but I think maybe we should discuss this. I feel like I've put on my like Sebastian Maniscalco hat. It's just that, Jeffrey taking a while here. It's very hard to make heads or tails of this, even for the players.
Yeah.
Even for the players.
And then they'll think for like 10 minutes, like shuffle a rook from like B1 to C1 or something. And then you play H6 and they're like, I still don't have a plan. I'll think another 10 minutes.
Yep.
But they don't really have that here.
It's like a Moby Dick kind of position. You read 7 chapters and then,
I read less than
read
that.
another 7 more.
I read less.
Yeah, I read something called Spark Notes. I don't imagine
Oh, really?
anybody would know what that website is. Yeah, no, I never said that. Let that be stricken off the record.
Okay.
Never used Sparknotes in my life, ever. No fear Shakespeare. All right, they want to hear the joke, so I'll be quick. So basically, back in the Soviet Union, everything took a very long time to procure, like to get, including cars and stuff. So the joke goes that a family, and there are very few families that owned cars. So one of the privileged families is in line, and they talk to a car salesman, and they finally sign up for the waiting list. And the salesman tells them, come back in 10 years on this date, and you'll have the car ready for you. And the father asks, well, do we come in the morning or in the afternoon? And the salesman says, well, what do you care? It's 10 years from now, whatever. He says, well, the plumber is coming in the morning. Actually, Reagan shared this joke in one of his speeches.
You're a good student of history.
Well,
you've been hitting the video archives of the 1980s presidencies.
Indeed. Yeah, I like those videos, old interviews, old speeches, all that kind of stuff.
Danya, are you familiar with this Russian proverb from my chat over here? My pawns are my pawns, and your pawns are negotiable.
My pawns, like PAWNS?
Yeah, like chess. My pawns are mine. And
I'm trying to translate it in my mind, but I'm
about
failing to.
Pieszkis.
Yeah, мои пешки, твои пешки. Yeah, I'd have to hear it in Russian, but nothing comes to my mind. Is the person who shared it Russian?
I don't think so.
That might explain why. Russian is a very rich language. There's so many. Whoa, that is a move we need to unpack. But there's so many expressions that you could go your entire life without hearing something that constitutes a very famous expression.
Well, G6. I really wanted to do it, and then I told myself, no, do not weaken the B2 to G7 diagonal. And then he did it.
That is a bold move. So I guess, does he want to re-fianchetto his other bishop via F8 to G7?
I keep trying to remember this game that I studied, 2 days ago.
And knight e4 very quickly by Jeffery, clearing open that diagonal. Instinctively, I don't love Sam's moves. Maybe he takes everything on e4 and he goes bishop f8 and he's totally fine.
Right.
But it seems just very committal, It's like everything has to go right here. So, in any case, we'll see what Sam does here. Bishop f8 immediately does not work. Then you pay the price for g6, right? Is knight f6 in DC.
Yeah.
And you open up that knight.
Gives the bishop.
Okay, so he's taken, and taken on d4. Very interesting.
He's got something concrete in mind, it's looking like.
Bishop f4, I think, after ed.
There you go.
And Sam, we talked about his work ethic. Also, I should mention attention to detail. He finds these ideas all the time, which are not tactics per se. They are, right? But they require a very fine understanding of how the position has changed. So you might ignore the fact that white has played ed, but that move has a drawback, right? It weakens the f4 square. Who cares about that? Well, Sam does. And Jeffery should too now. So he's got a decision on his hands. Does he play bishop takes d4?
Right. And if he takes back with a piece, then does Sam need to get rid of the bishop pair? Maybe not. Maybe so.
Maybe bishop a3 in response to bishop d4. Variations on a theme here.
Yeah.
All that work for a pawn. Yeah, but that's high-level chess for you, Nimzovich said the masters know how to celebrate the tiniest victories. And a c4 pawn at this level is just, you would climb Everest and Kilimanjaro for that pawn.
Yeah.
So I think what Jeffery might be considering, this sounds crazy, but how about he takes d4, bishop f4, and then we just go bishop d3. We give up the exchange in return for the dark squares. Well, we're about to see, because he takes d4 has been played. I don't see Sam doing anything other than bishop f4. And now I think bishop d3, it's been played.
Yeah.
Let's
Now there's a
go.
fight.
Exchange sack, Petrosian-esque.
Good
I don't
choice,
think it's
Jeffery.
objectively that good, but okay. I think it offers a lot of practical chances. And now I think b5 is a very thematic move in these positions, carving out the d5 square, right? The issue with b5 is that white plays c5, and he drives in that very, very strong pass pawn. The queen from c1 can access the h6 square. That's another unpleasant wrinkle in the position.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, very difficult to play practically from Black's perspective. If he still had a bishop on b7, then you could really look at the f4 square to save you. You could play a move like knight h5 here with ideas of queen f4 and knight f4. Mm-hmm. But without a light squared bishop, I feel like knight h5 g3 might just blunt what I'm doing, and white might not care. And then they're just threatening queen h6 the same.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. No, this is that bishop on b2 is just such a monster. And Alpha Zero, I guess, in the limited games that have been released, I think is in some sense forcing us to reconceive our relationship to material. And it's, okay, king g7 by Sam makes sense. He's covering the h6 square, but has he gone from the frying pan into the fire, stepping into this long diagonal here?
Yeah, this is scary to me.
Very. Now, d5 immediately, that knight on d7 is doing a hero's job of protecting its compatriot on f6.
Yeah.
But d5 is one of those things which Sam constantly has to reckon with.
Yeah. Yeah, if white could play bishop b5, that would win the game, but there's no easy way to do it.
Yeah. So, what Jeffery can consider as a move, and he's already moved, queen g5. Okay, yeah. So piling up the pressure. Now, h6 by Sam is very tempting, but it also is slightly weakening. So Jeffery could just park the queen on h4.
Mm-hmm. It's tough. Daniel, I feel like an incredible pressure watching these games that, like, every move, if I were playing it, might be my last move.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every move, I'm not, like, it's not obvious candidate moves aren't coming to mind for me in the positions that they're choosing to play. It's not like, well, I got to play b5 to get this square. It's like, I really don't know what to do. I would like 100% flag these positions.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can totally fall into the rabbit hole and you sort of, this move is bad. And these positions, every move has a very clearly defined drawback. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that makes them difficult to play. So you're constantly choosing the lesser evil. And I don't think I'm good at doing that. I think and h6 has been played.
If queen h4, like you were saying, there's g5 and you have to sack the knight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But you don't care.
I'm gonna pay Jeffery a visit if he doesn't sack that knight. Now, queen h4, queen e3.
Yeah.
I don't know, David. I liked queen h4. Yeah. I really liked queen h4 instead.
Yeah. You just trade king f8 and then maybe. Well, there's also bishop a3 there, but probably just d5.
Yeah, now b5. I think b5 by Sam just has to be played at some point. I wouldn't be able to stand the tension. Yeah. And I'd want to lock up that d5 square for myself.
But after b5, when white plays c5, now you've got a tempo with knight d5.
Yep, knight d5 and a6, and the other knight slides on over to f6. I think
because previously I wasn't willing to give my b5 pawn or to give white time to then follow with d5.
Yeah, and that's also why I wanted to play queen h4, because if you played b5 then, well, there were some d5 ideas. Now Sam has parked his knight here. He's going to bring his other knight over to f6 or even to b6.
I think he's going to play queen f4.
Ooh, I like that move. And the queen trade is obviously in Black's favor, despite the possibility of taking and going d5. But at this point, it's just a paper tiger. You move your king away, and without queens, this diagonal is virtually meaningless.
Yeah. But I'd say it's close. Like, one would be wrong to assume that a queen trade is like offering a win and your opponent has to walk away from it. If you want to offer queen trades, I think you need to check them every time, because it would be a bare margin of advantage for black, I think. Bishop pair with an extra pawn.
Right. Sometimes, actually, you want to go into an endgame. That's actually, you bring up a very good point, I think, because that's one of a lot of players' weaknesses. They just equate a queen trade with certain things, but an endgame can be just as tactical and can offer just as many tactical possibilities, attacking possibilities, as a middle game can. Now, with that being said, this specific instance, because of black's control over the d5 square, black basically puts the kibosh on any attempts in the endgame here. So Jeffery keeping the queens on the board. Now, a repetition is possible, right, with queen c7, but Sam sensing that he can play for more, going rook c7.
All right, I've guessed one or two moves now. I expected
queen f4 is very, very nice.
I expected
now,
this.
h3 by Jeffery, trying to at least take care of the back rank.
Yeah.
But doubling by Sam, and definitely Jeffery.
He can try
big trouble here.
He can try and turn this around, just like Jeffery did on him last game, by playing rook c2 at some point. You know, in the other game, Jeffery had that bishop takes f3 moment where he says, I don't need to be up in exchange. I'm just going to highlight, my positional advantages. And at some point, you can play rook c2 here and just say, like, hey, bishop on b2 is miserable. Your light squares are bad. My knights are all set up. And actually play the position down a pawn instead of up in exchange.
And for that reason, I thought of maybe going queen a4.
Okay.
To stop rook c2. I agree that it's a very
so you'd also be worried about that.
Yeah, and I would bring the queen to d1 and try to kick, ultimately, black's queen away with rook e4.
Right.
A rook e4 here, while actually very much possible, queen a3 has been played.
Ooh.
So
interesting.
I think he is preparing rook e4.
Right.
Potentially.
Yeah, he's dealing with that rook c1 check that you have to watch out for. And also, if queen a4, there was maybe knight to b6 to c4. I don't know if it matters, but it's like that tempo to move the knight without allowing white to play knight e5 for free.
Yeah.
So his move order here doesn't give that tempo. So if knight b6, he has also knight e5 as an option here.
True, and then that knight could even jump onto c6 potentially. So, no, I mean, these positions can be infuriating. You feel maybe g5 and start opening up a second front. Maybe it's time to repurpose the king side in black's favor this time. But it's hard. I mean, you start enjoying your position here, but black also has to win. Good pieces don't win you the game, as Tarvish said. Good moves do.
Yeah, and we got to find something in white's position to attack. I mean, if we're even convinced that black has an advantage to be pressing.
Right. Yeah, sometimes in these positions, he doesn't even have an advantage. You turn on the computer and you find that the advantage is symbolic at best, which is sometimes crazy to think. But here, I'm pretty sure black is objectively better.
Okay.
After something like, knight b6, knight c4. But the game is going to be decided in a time scramble. I'm calling it right now. That's what's going to decide the game.
Okay. Well, knight b6, knight e5. We'll stop knight c4 for the moment.
Oh, right. We talked about, but then I thought maybe queen d2.
Okay. It's going to get in there and disrupt everybody.
Although you can just play like rook. And also queen b4 there to try to trade queens.
Could I just answer that with knight f3? Oh, you go to b4.
Queen b4?
Yeah. Kind of checkmate my queen with the old smush against
exactly.
the side.
And again, there's queen takes b4 and d5 check. But okay, the king just moves away and black is completely fine. He's going to win the pawn on d5. Well, more than fine, he's winning.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned about Sam's clock here. Very concerned. But
sorry, everybody,
we'll
for
see
the
what he does.
Combo vacuum / blender / jackhammer that's being used in my kitchen. I think there's some piece of broccoli or strawberry that's really getting hammered.
Whoa. Breaking, but queen a7. Okay, so he wants to take on f3. Look at the speed that they're executing these moves. They both calculated, but I think it's a draw at best. Queen g5, there's king h2. Wait a second. Does this work for Sam? Queen g5, you don't go king f1, right, because of knight f4. But king h2, knight f4, there's rook g1. And the rook gets out to g3. And, well, maybe black can repeat moves with queen f4 check there. But I don't think there's anything more than that, to be honest. That's crazy.
Cyan Riddle screams, "No, you take the exchange." Because they've sacked exchanges back and forth 3 times now, right?
They have. Yeah, first. Yeah, it's crazy now. You think about it. So Sam was up in exchange. Now he's down in exchange. And you called it, David. You mentioned you could be up you could be up the pawn and down the pawn. It's a game of swings. This one is. Now king h1 here, I think allows, well, at the very least you, but maybe you do play king h1. Okay, queen f4 there. I find it hard to believe that, black cannot make a draw here, I think. But I think that's the most he can do.
I mean, if he doesn't mate, he's not going to win any endgames now.
Right. And he's Jeffrey definitely considering it. King f1 also, but then knight f4. What do you think of that position?
Risky.
It's not like black's threatening anything after king f1, knight f4. There's no mate threats or anything. Maybe rook e2 there, but the problem is black's king is very safe. So if necessary, black has this extra move he can employ.
Yeah. Rook e2, huh? That's crazy.
Yeah, so anticipating a draw here. How about king h2, queen h4? What if black does play for a win?
King h2, queen h4, trying to make him defend f2 and give him time for knight f4.
Well, king h1 has been played.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we will see a repetition after all. Queen f5 though?
So let's say he plays queen h4 here. What would be next?
Queen d6 perhaps?
Knight f4.
Right.
Queen e5, king h7.
Yeah. Very nice. And then I'd have to go king g1, but knight takes h3. I mean, that looks like the most Monka-esque position ever. Yeah.
Indeed.
So Sam
all the
dipping,
old chess books say that.
But dipping into exactly have you ever seen, David, the 18th century treatise, How to Play Monka-esque Positions?
Yeah.
It was by, I think it was by Shakespeare's grandson, actually. He was the originator of that word.
Yeah. I think this is a regular cup, ThinkPad.
It came from actually an ancient term. Monks used to refer to themselves as like a female monk, like a monka. And the plural of that is monkas. And then it got repurposed in the 14th century. There was a fierce debate over it. There was representatives from Mixer and Twitch and all these rival sites. It was a crazy time. Okay, so rook g3, knight h3. Now, rook takes h3 is at least a draw, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not clear what could ever go wrong for white in that endgame. As long as there's queen and knight, you're taking some risk, though I don't really see a threat from black.
Right.
So I'm predicting that white has a path to a win here somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe
and
just
maybe
queen
that
d6.
Bingo, that's exactly what I was thinking. And then if knight f4, you just run your king to f1, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then maybe I can take on g3. Okay, I guess we'll find out in a second. Sam, queen d6 played. Queen d6 played. Knight takes f2, but now king g2.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Sam wants knight d3 in that position. I mean, as long as you have the queen and the knight, you're going to have chances.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree. It seems like he's losing the thread here is Sam.
Well, he's keeping the white queen off e5, keeping the practical hopes alive. b6.
Yeah, just say, you know what?
When you don't know
Show
what to
me
do,
the money.
Just b6.
But knight f4 check then, I think.
Mm-hmm. King f2, queen h2.
But okay, I mean, queen h2 and okay, take on g3.
Yeah, king e3, and then queen f4.
Yeah, that's like what you did to me in that game we played in Berkeley. Like I had like nothing left at the end. You remember that game?
Yeah,
I think it was a Benoni.
it was.
I knew I'd made a mistake, and I played into the Benoni against you. Like, you're the kind of player I knew was going to crush me from a Benoni. So I was regretting it the whole game.
Well, that couldn't have helped you play the game.
Right. No, not at all. No, it definitely did. Regret, it really helps.
Yeah.
So Jeffery actually thinking, King F1.
He runs. So
King F1, he runs.
Queen H2, Rook G6.
Rook G6,
What a
boom, boom.
Monka Pog.
Monka Pog or Spock Champ. Pepe hands. Pepe. Well, it's definitely not a Pepega move. That was the opposite of Pepega.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think the cool kids say 5-head.
Yeah.
What's up, JJ? Thanks for dropping in. Now, Rook G4 loses to Queen H1 followed by Queen H2.
Yep.
Or at least draws.
There's a problem with having the queen on D6 too, huh?
Incredible that it's both a good thing and a bad thing.
You could throw in Queen E5 though, and then it's defended.
He does. But now it falls prey to Knight D3 ideas.
On every
My
square.
Goodness. That's why the queen and the knight are such a powerful tandem. What to do for Jeffery? Is he losing?
Sam just sighed like, man, I'm glad I'm not in the winning position with the rook, because it is hell to try and find the right moves.
Indeed. Queen C7. He's trying to bail out with a perpetual. Now, is there mate here for Sam? I don't see it. Queen E2, King G1. Queen E1, King H2, and at the end of the day, you're going to have to take the rook.
It's hard to mate him while leaving that king on, yeah.
Sam thinking, but repeating once. Jeffery not biting, of course, not giving up his queen.
Yeah.
And apparently an only move discovered by Jeffery, Queen C7. What a find in time pressure.
C7, yeah.
Queen E1, King H2, King. And there's no mate. That rook on G3 with its last breaths is guarding against the checkmate.
Yeah.
Queen F1, of course, King H2. Okay, careful now, Sam. Don't go Queen C1, please.
He comes out to D2 to defend the knight. He's thinking about maybe playing King G8.
King G7. He really is.
He got those 5-second things, but yeah, you can't do it. There's no way.
And Sam, that would not be wise. With 2 more games to go, a solid performance. What a game. Back and forth they went. Tons of effort exerted by both players. Fantastic calculation we saw. And a well-earned 5-minute break for the players.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I wonder who was winning there at the end. And maybe it was a draw the whole way through. Maybe it's one of those positions where neither side had anything for the entire duration of that, sequence. That's generally what happens. When you can't understand who's better, it's just a draw.
Yeah, and Sam was clearly mad after that game, whereas I would have been thrilled.
right. Yeah.
I would have been like, did you see that? I sacked material repeatedly against Jeffery Xiong. It was a mess. Mm-hmm. It was exciting, and I didn't even lose.
Right, exactly.
And I
drew down an exchange. Yeah. So 2 more games to go. Sam now with the white pieces. I wonder if they're going to repeat an alapin. That would be fascinating. 2 alapins in this kind of match.
Yeah.
When was the last time that happened? I'll be right back. I need 2 minutes.
Go for it.
I'll run to the restroom.
We agreed to work it in for everybody.
Sounds great. Well, the commentators have the hardest job,
Yeah, sitting here and laughing while they suffer. All right. So everybody, this is a good time for me to mention a couple things again. Number 1, if you've got questions for Sam or Jeffery, they're going to be answering questions after the match. So think up your questions or store up your questions or send me your questions now. And number 2, they're on the U.S. Olympiad team, which will have to be in action pretty soon. And they're looking to gather some donations for their team. So there it is. Support the U.S. Olympiad team if you like, or just a small amount as a way of saying thank you to Jeffery and Sam for letting us into their homes and their training and their minds here. I do think so, Great Wolf. Yeah, they're teammates and get along well. And I think, they're going into this event together. Even if you didn't want to give your team, even if you didn't want to give somebody that take back, if they're going to be your teammate, you might as well. You don't really have much to gain by not doing so.
All right.
There it is. Perfect timing. Perfect
Excellent.
timing.
Okay. So 2 more games to go. 1.5 to a half in favor of Jeffery right now. Yeah. Fascinating. Full games.
Yeah. Sam may not even repeat E4, right? After that.
Absolutely. He's
Alapin.
One of those people. He's preparation everywhere. He can do absolutely anything under the sun. C4, D4, E4. Hashmi asks, is there Armageddon? If they tie, David, is there a playoff or
No.
because it's a friendly?
It's just to play a certain number of games. The goal is not to necessarily declare a champion or something. So
right, and that I like that a lot. To warm them, but I have a feeling there's going to be a winner. I have a feeling there's going to be a winner. I don't know who it's going to be. And Sam is very much alive, and he's such a resilient player in general. He's got just tons of willpower. Even in these friendly matches, he's not just going to bend down, and die. But we'll see. This is a pivotal game, and he has started with E4, Jeffery with E5 in response. Ooh. So he has not repeated the alapin.
Some Rui, some variety. Uh-oh.
We got a Berlin.
Yeah. What are your feelings on the Berlin? I've never asked you about it.
I love the Berlin. It's so tactical. It's amazing. The game's never ended in a draw, which I really like about it.
Right.
It's not very well studied, which I really like about it. And the queens are still on the board, providing plenty of tactical chances, which I really like about it.
So the Berlin has everything going for it. How could it possibly still be single?
Precisely. I mean, it's got Hinge, Bumble and Tinder, and yet no dates for some reason.
Yeah.
Berlin, people keep very, very far away from Berlin.
Maybe they find it intimidating. Maybe nobody thinks they're good enough.
No, I mean, I heard it hired a coach, a profile coach, and yet still, just something about it that's repulsive.
Here's a tactic. White's threatening E6 here.
Yep.
Oh, no, because after Fe6, knight E5, knight D6. So
there was an interception. Yeah, exactly.
So there's really just no tactics.
A funny story. At the World Youth Chess Championship under 10 in 2005, my first ever national tournament, players are always assigned coaches, and I was assigned Joel Benjamin, Grandmaster. And I used to play the exchange Roy back then, and one of my opponents played the, Bishop G4, H3, H5 fishing pole line. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time I'd seen that idea. So Joel showed it to me, and I was like, well, can't White take the knight or the bishop and then do something? Mm-hmm. And I spent 10 minutes trying to analyze that position. And Joel was just smiling and watching, and eventually he stepped in. He was like, Daniel, you're not going to rediscover the wheel here. So, and I was just stubborn. I was very, very stubborn.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
I
did
am
not
too.
refute it.
I am also stubborn like that. If I've got some chess idea and someone tells me something that clashes with it, I will really fight tooth and nail. But I think that's been helpful for me to eventually understand the thing, because once I do sort of realize it, I really understand why.
Yeah, like you learn either way. But I would always say when my coaches would be like, and in a position like this, white is better. That wasn't satisfactory. Like a position like this. I'm talking about this position. I'm talking about practice. Not a game, but this specific position. So I'm a big believer in concrete evaluation.
All right. Sam thinking for himself now about H5. He was a second or so away from getting his time up to 16 minutes, up through 94. And now we see him sinking in. Jeffery is so calm. We watched him play a classical chess double round robin event maybe last month. And he was playing against Fedoseev and Mamedyarov and Lei Kwang Liem. And we had his webcam during the games, and he was so calm in the most razor sharp positions, which this one is not, I suppose, but in every position, it almost felt like he was at peace with, win, draw, loss. It just didn't matter to him. He was just blowing with the pieces in the wind.
He's a consummate professional. Learns from everything. What impressed me, I have a lot of stories about Sam. Of course, I traveled with him a lot. But at the World Team Championship 2015, which is, of course, a very sort of high-profile tournament, important to do well, he would Gregory Kaidanov, a grandmaster accompanied us as one of the coaches, and Sam would turn his computer into Gregory at like 8 p.m. on every day. Gregory would keep in his hotel room because Sam wanted to basically force himself, to not look at a computer for the last couple hours of the day and go to sleep early. I was like, we're loading 11 p.m. We're loading up Netflix. I got to catch up on this and that. Sam is very, 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 very driven, which I think is an extremely admirable and inspiring quality.
Yeah.
I would actually wake up during that tournament at 6 a.m. to watch. I think the Warriors were in the playoffs at the time. So that was when the internet in the hotel was at its best because nobody was using it. So if you want to get me to wake up at 6 a.m., just put the Warriors on.
And put you in the right time zone for...
Exactly.
For that.
So Shankland thinking. I mean, F3 comes to mind as a very natural move, but...
Yeah, that's where my brain stopped.
Knight C5, I guess, has to be considered as well. The insertion of Knight C5, Bishop C8. Who does that favor? It might not favor white because black could play b6 and then reroute his bishop to the long diagonal potentially, which is an idea. In these positions.
Yeah, but he played it.
He did.
And then he played g5, which I haven't seen before in the Berlin, leaving h3 hanging, looking at rook d4.
Right, a very concrete idea, trying to win a piece.
This is the fruit of 3 minutes of thought.
Indeed. So bishop takes h3, rook d4, bishop g4, and then f3, right? Skewering the bishops.
Yeah.
My question is, what if Jeffery flicks in b6, which he just did? Okay.
Presumably the plan is rook d4.
Okay. And then maybe bishop f2, king f2. I feel like that's just a draw, right? I mean, both sides have ruined pawn structure.
Yeah.
Whose pawn structure is, as they would say in Animal Farm, more ruined than the others? Well, I don't know.
Right. I'd looked at bishop g5 instead of bishop f2. Bishop g5 goes much better for white than bishop f2.
Yeah, just that, I would say, but not by much, Dave. I think it's plus equals. What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking that.
So, very interesting position. And yeah, this idea is very unusual. I've actually never seen it before, trapping a bishop. I mean, I've seen the bishop on h4 many times.
Yeah.
It shows you how much I care about the Berlin as an opening.
Yeah.
So let's see. Now the other option for Sam is to play something like knight b3, but then there's just c5, right? And that bishop seems safe for the time being until we evacuate it with f6.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like moving the knight away. I feel like you have to go rook d4.
Okay. Also, if you move the knight away, you have to double check the whole bishop h3 construction again.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of moves to double check. Well, Sam's pretty good at that, so he's in his working mode here.
Yep, calculating, working. Okay.
Yeah. Jeffery doesn't care. He's just looking at it to see what might happen.
Yeah, and I mean, Jeffery is a very interesting, kind of very versatile player. You know, it's hard for me to put my finger on what exactly. Okay, this will sound weird, but like what exactly his style is. I feel like he is very universal, even by modern standards. He's very universal. You know what I'm saying? It's just like you can do everything. You can play every opening, and
right.
I admire that quite a bit.
Alekhines in Berlin, other than they each have knight f6, they don't have much in common style-wise.
Right, exactly. Thank you, man, for the bits.
Knight d3.
Okay,
so there goes the whole rook d4 idea.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, Sam, very principled. Very principled. I don't know.
But he's just dropping the h-pawn, and I don't see why.
So what does he see? What is it that he sees there?
I feel like it's knight to b4, which is a square like no knight has ever been on in the Berlin before.
Right.
And then bishop d7, rook d4, self-forking or something. I don't understand what's going on. It's all beyond me.
It's such a complicated position. So bishop h3, yeah, knight b4. I mean, I feel like Jeffery just almost has to do it and just ask Sam the question. Because 10 minutes is not a long time. Sam spends another 5 minutes, guess what? Well, he's down.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, what's an example of a non-friendly match? Well, Fischer-Spassky comes to mind. They're very friendly. You know, Kramnik Topalov, also very friendly to each other. I've heard they're best friends. They're, going shopping at, I don't know where, Sephora. Okay, I don't know. For their buying gifts together for their wives. I think they were seen. Well, Kramnik was seen in the bathroom waiting for. Topalov was seen waiting for Kramnik in the bathroom area.
Right.
Sorry, I had to. It's funny because I was in middle school. Well, no, I was in elementary. I was in 5th grade, I think, at the time. And that is when all my classmates found out about chess, when there was Toilet Gate. Because I would wake up to watch the games.
Yeah.
And to watch the drama. It was all about the drama. It was fascinating. Then.
I remember people used to read newspapers back then, and it was in the New York Times. And to me, that was like, a sort of like massive blow to the profile of chess, that people were reading in the New York Times that chess players were fighting about a bathroom visit.
It was unthinkable, right?
Kind
it was
of
embarrassing.
Like,
right. And because everybody was taking it out of context. Like, people were just laughing at it, as you said. Yeah, I mean, I remember it was the time people used to read. Now.
Yeah. Now, if you read the newspaper, that's embarrassing to you, not to whoever's in the newspaper.
Exactly. So, in any case, so Jeffery now in the tank, of course, very committal decision to be made here.
Yeah. He probably has a range of options. Like, he doesn't have to take on h3, right? Because Sam's not really threatening much. I mean, this whole thing where you put all the pawns on dark squares against that light squared bishop, it reeks, honestly, of like black could do anything they want to.
It really does. And c5 was proposed by someone in my chat. c5,
yeah,
just a good multi-purpose move, taking the b4 square away. The one drawback of c5 is maybe Sam could go knight f4.
Right.
Bishop takes g5, knight d5. But even there, bishop d8, and
right.
That's the thing about the Berlin is it bends, but it doesn't break, right? It's such a defensible scheme. Even when it seems like you're putting tremendous pressure on it, it's so solid.
Yeah. And black will be like, yeah, I've played the bishop d8 maneuver before.
Right, exactly. Just I remember the game against Yakovenko or some random 2750. It's funny, Yakovenko actually did play the Berlin against me, so that's where I got that from.
Uh-huh. So A5 has also been suggested.
I was going to say F6. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just extricating the bishop because black's the one with positional domination here.
Right.
So Sam, to me, it's unthinkable to just pardon the bishop. So maybe you play F4. Ugh, never mind. That just looks terrible.
It does look terrible. There's knight F4, leaving everything hanging as a candidate move. But then I think bishop G5, knight G6, rook H6 probably doesn't pan out.
Right.
So how about EF, GF, G6? That seems more like what white would want in the Berlin.
Right, right.
Boom, boom, boom. Defends that H-pawn. Man, I have, like, my list of questions for them for after this is so long. Why did you play this move?
Yeah,
Why did you play that move? Why did you play this move?
Right. Well, explain the whole game to us, please.
Right. What was the problem with bishop takes H3?
So what's going on here? I mean, of course, the bishop is no longer in danger. To what extent is Sam even? I mean, is he much worse? Because I understand he's made all these positional concessions, but can I be honest with you? I don't like the move F6 by Jeffery.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't think the bishop was really in danger. I think he could have squeezed more out of the position. And now kind of Sam gets everything covered. And, at the end of the day, he might be left with a passed pawn on F2. And that's also something to be reckoned with.
Right. Also just exploding lines open. Isn't that what white normally finds so frustrating that they can't do? And here black's doing it on purpose.
For him. Yeah. I mean, I think, of course, the resources that white has at his disposal have been tremendously minimized, and king F7 is a really good move. I think just bringing the king out. No, black is definitely better. I don't think there's any question about it, but I think Sam should be able to at the very least hold his own if he's careful.
I would like to play B3, bishop B2.
Bishop F4 by Sam.
Bishop F4, yeah, C7, that's a spot.
It is. So e takes F6 now becomes a possibility. So what does Jeffery do here? F5 is possible, but that I don't like that move. I was trying to blockade it with bishop E6, but F5 there's knight B4 even. And okay, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I'd be a little concerned for black. If this position isn't bad for black, then the whole Berlin is just a walk in the park. Because to me, he literally just opened up the area around his king. And there still are pieces on the board. It's just that usually the Berlin, there aren't a lot of open lines. But 2 rooks and 2 pieces are enough.
It should be. But on the other hand, that E5 square, if it's well covered by black, then there are just no other, potentially infiltration squares against black's king.
Now there's a pawn hanging on C7 I'm never going to understand.
Right.
I'm sure he won't take it, and I'll never know why he didn't take it.
We'll have to ask him in the postmortem. Yeah. Okay, let's just walk us through the last 20 moves.
Right. Of each game. Thank you.
Exactly. And so, yeah. They're playing quite a bit faster this game, but it's also because there are a lot of moves of theory. And I feel like maybe they just came to terms with the fact that it was an inscrutable position. So they were like, we're just going to cut our losses and at least play fast. So.
Yeah. So light squared bishop, maybe coming to F5.
Yeah.
Got a complete development at some point here.
Right. Yeah. So is the Sam take on F6 here? I mean, oh wait, you said you didn't think he would take on F6?
Right, because then he would answer my question. So.
Oh, right. So they have to keep everything an enigma. Okay.
Yeah, everything has to be like, well, there's another thing hanging that they didn't take.
Yeah. Yeah, something very subtle. Rook E1. Yeah, A4 maybe.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know what else Sam can do. I mean, in all seriousness, other than EF.
Yeah. Knight b4, hanging the e pawn and the f pawn, and then black answers with like bishop f5.
Right, or like bishop
huh?
b7. Yeah, it doesn't defend anything; it just hangs more stuff in return.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I try to play like solitaire chess with Carlsen, and literally every move, I'm like, okay, this time I'm sure he must have played this. Like, there's no other move he could have possibly. There we go, bishop g3.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
Instead of taking c7, he hangs e5, right? It's
right.
Like, how is that not confusing?
So bishop g5 by Jeffery, right? You would never take a free pawn. by our definition, bishop g5.
Right.
I feel like there's something we're just not fundamentally not seeing about this position that they do.
Right.
I really think Jeffery might play bishop g5 by this token.
Maybe rook e2 really is the thing for black. Maybe that's the problem with e takes f6.
Maybe
is like he just doesn't even care about c7 or f6. It's just ef6, rook e2, and then maybe your best move is rook d2, and black just trades and develops.
Right. That makes sense. That's entirely possible. But Jeffery, of course, there's only two moves that he has, bishop takes g3 or bishop g5. Now, bishop takes g3, what might be concerning him is after king g3 fe, right? That pawn in e5 it's kind of weak, so maybe White can do something to the effect of, well, maybe White can play fg, f takes e5, rook f1 check, king g7, rook e1, and bank on the activity of his pieces. I don't even think White is much worse there, if worse at all. So,
yeah,
who knows?
That's plausible. On the other hand, if black plays this bishop g5 move, according to our theory, then f4 from White looks reasonably strong into it. Maybe not. Maybe f4, bishop h6, bishop h4, f5, and then he switches to blockading, and that's okay too.
Right, exactly. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? It's one of those things. Confusing. You flip a coin and you know you're going to flip the wrong way. You can't guess your way into something like this. Maybe they're both equivalent. Who knows? But by our theorem that we formulated that neither side is taking anything free, bishop g5 must be the move.
You know what used to happen when I would watch GM tournaments is they would play like bishop g5, bishop f4, bishop h4, bishop g3. So on top of the fact that I understood nothing about why black wasn't taking the pawn on e5, white wasn't taking the pawn on c7, on top of it, they would just agree to a draw there and leave, and I would never know anything.
They would drag you through the mud, yeah. They would like repeat the moves that were complete enigmas.
Do it 3 times and then end the game with a draw on move 20. And I just, what?
Well, the weirdest thing to me is when you're like watching a blitz game and you see either a hanging piece over the course of 5-10 moves, and you know the expression, it's always easier from the side. And you cannot believe, and there's a famous video on YouTube, viral video of Ivanchuk, I think, against Vichy in an old game from the 90s. And I think Maurice Ashley and Yasser are commentating it. I think we're one of the two. And Ivanchuk misses mate in 1, and he spends 1 minute thinking in the position where he has mate in 1. And it's like a ladder mate. And he misses it and he loses the game. It's unthinkable.
I don't know what a ladder mate is, but every mate in 1 is a mate in 1.
Right, exactly. No, it's like a rook on g7.
Yeah.
And he's got like queen d5 to g8, checkmate. So, yeah, Daniel, King, and Maurice. Yep. So bishop takes g3 played after all.
We're going to see
violating our theorem.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
They're even playing a position that we sort of considered and that makes some small amount of sense.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
It's funny. In one sense, we're in the same world because we're in a Zoom call with each other. And in another sense, you're picking up cues from one chat room and I'm picking up cues from a different chat room. So we're also in 2 completely different worlds.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. And we're on opposite sides of the country. Wonders of technology.
Yeah. So Jeffrey having a long think about his king now. little bit surprising to me. Because he thought 3.5 minutes on bishop g3. Sam busts out fairly obvious 2 moves in response, and now he's back to thinking. But
right, king. Well, maybe he shouldn't move the king at all. Bishop f5, maybe luring the rook into f5 in order to be able to attack it. Yeah, but in all seriousness, of course, king e6 is out of the question, right? Because of knight takes e5, which probably means he's going to play it.
Wow, that would be surprising. Yep, that would still surprise me.
But king g7, black could also consider strategically giving up the e-pawn in order to buy himself time for development. But I don't think he should do that here. I think he should go e4, and then if something like knight f4, perhaps he can park the king on h6. Where it's actually quite safe.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. So, king g6 has been played, yeah, which makes sense.
Here he comes. Oh, yeah, in contrast to king g7, if white plays rook a e1, e4, rook f4, he could now play bishop f5, maybe.
Can you say that again?
In contrast to the king being on g7, he might now in some case be able to play like rook e1, e4, rook f4, bishop f5.
Bishop f5, right. Because it was pinned.
Although even there, it's g4 and long variations, but g4, pawn takes knight, pawn takes bishop.
I mean, even bishop takes h3 there is possible in order to unpin yourself.
Oh,
but who knows? So now it's Shankland's turn to go into the tank. Yeah, Berlin's are Berlin's. Like, what is there to say?
Mm-hmm. If white regained e5 for nothing, would this be a nice position for white?
I would say so.
I would say
I think that another thing to point out, right, is any pawn endgame is going to be winning for white, assuming e5 is gone. Even with the presence of e5, it might be winning for white because the pawn majority for black on the queen side is irrelevant. What's relevant is that white is the one with the chance to create an outside passed pawn.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And if white ends up with the knight on e5 when they take back the pawn, it'd be a decent square for the knight to fight the bishop here. The black king might remain a little bit awkward.
Right. So do you know who is on the Olympiad? I mean, I assume Shankland and Xiong are. Who else is on the Olympiad team?
Yes. Wesley So and Ray Robson.
Wow. That's pretty darn strong.
Yeah. That's the team this time. So, Fabiano and Naka had other commitments, and also, this is a fundraiser because USCF didn't have the normal money for this event. So that may have played a role in what Caruana and Naka chose to do. Right.
Yeah, wow. I don't know why you would ever think that. Money never plays a role in these decisions.
Look at that move, rook f2.
Very subtle, very, very subtle.
Doesn't even go for the e-pawn.
So what does he want? Does he want a double on the f-file?
That much, yes. I'm confident.
I mean, am I out of my league by suggesting that?
Yeah, no, if you just wanted a reality check, the goal is to double rooks on the f-file for sure.
Right. And then rook f6 check becomes an idea. It's one of those situations where the computer might say black is better, but you can lose this in an instant, just making one sloppy move and allowing the rook penetration to f6. It's so easy to lose these positions.
Yeah.
Especially with 2 minutes on the clock, which Jeffery has.
Yeah. On the Naka Caruana point, maybe if you guys raise enough money for the team off of Shankland and Xiong's match, Naka Caruana will reconsider and kick them off the team.
Right.
That'll be nice.
Right, exactly. I'm sure they wouldn't have anything to say about that. So king to g5, what a brazen king here by Jeffery. Yeah. But it makes sense because if you play h4, then even if the king drops back to h6, the g4 square has been vacated. Rook e1 by Sam. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And we got to wonder what to do about bishop d7, because I think it's kind of a big candidate move. Bishop d7, bishop b7.
Right.
That king is really just taunting white. It's like,
I'm really here
alone.
But Jeffery is also asking, I mean, he's got a minute and a half now. And let's forget about his pawn majority on the king side. Practically speaking, I don't think white is worse here, honestly. I think that Sam's position is tremendously solid. I don't see how Jeffery's going to win this game. So we'll see what he does. Going toward a minute on the clock now for Jeffery. He's going bishop d7.
I was surprised by rook e1, by the way. I was expecting, knight to g2 and the rook's still doubling. So,
well, you could still, I guess, but doubling here would be short-sighted because of bishop f5. And yeah, another one of those very undefined positions where it's so hard to play objectively well because of the amount of options that you have. Do you play knight g2? Do you play rook d2? Do you do nothing at all and play a3 maybe? Who knows? Sometimes that's the move. The computer just almost taunts you.
Well, rook fe2, bishop f5 doesn't look productive for white.
No, it doesn't. If anything, it looks counterproductive.
So we can't do an obvious move. That puts me in a tough spot.
Well, apparently Sam is not really finding anything really either because he's now going on about 2 minutes spent on this move. And what he doesn't want is a time scramble here. He wants to keep that time advantage. Yeah, rook e3 is being suggested. I like that move. I think rook e3 is definitely not a harmful move because it immobilizes the pawn. So as far as waiting moves go or semi-waiting moves go, that might be decent. That might be decent.
Yeah, I had a look at knight g2, rook f8, and thought that if white trades and takes on e4, black plays rook f2 at the end, and I thought black would probably be okay.
So Sam has decided on h4. And now knight h3. Okay, so he's... Okay. Trying to understand the zen of this idea. So first of all, the knight's heading to g5. The rook is heading to f7, potentially. Very interesting. So he's using the rim as kind of a springboard for his pieces.
If he got to g5, that could make sense. The first question is if black can just trade the knight off here.
Right, and that would, I think, be the safest, followed by rook e6. I don't see Jeffery losing that position, and as if he's listening to us. Here we go.
He's like, okay, good call, Danya.
Yeah, well, no, I was saying good call, David, and then, okay, rook e6 is like, all right, I'll listen to the other idiot. So, is the fact that he's up a pawn important at all, or is this just kind of a draw? I feel like it's just a draw.
Yeah.
Because black's not going anywhere on the queen side.
I second you on that.
Yeah, rook d8, stopping rook f4, but, Sam can now double on the e-file. Jeffery goes rook d4, and slowly they fizzle out.
Rook d4, c3.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about, and rook a4, b3. But I guess Jeffery could put his rook on a3. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah. I think on rook e2, maybe just rook d to e8, and then...
Oh, right. Yeah.
Your thing's covered, and if white plays the rook to d2 or f2, you then go to the other open file in response.
You can play a little cat and mouse. Yeah, I think a draw for might be incoming here. And again, like the computer in these positions will always say black is better because white technically doesn't have enough for the pawn. But that's the curse of the Berlin structure, is that pawn majority is not as meaningful as it would normally be.
I thought you were going to say it's that nobody can win, not white and not black
No,
either.
and that is also true. Yeah, despite the greatest efforts to unbalance the position, it always heads toward a draw in the end.
You've played this magic opening that doesn't allow your opponent to win, but the downside is you're not allowed to win either.
Exactly. Yeah, a Berlin that draws, has that ever happened before? I don't, not in my recent memory. I think you'd have to go back to the 19th century to find a game that ended in a draw.
Yeah.
So Sam deciding whether to repeat. Again, I don't see that what he would gain from something brazen like G4. Because
nor would it change the balance. You could take the G and H pawns off the board, and I feel the position would kind of play the same.
Exactly. It's not like the H pawn is going anywhere. So I think Sam should just accept the inevitable, take the draw. And the final game, setting the table for the final must-win game. Yeah, and there we go.
There, acceptance.
No reason for Jeffery also to go too crazy. All right, Jeffery, rook e8. There we go. Now Sam's going to spend another 15 seconds thinking here, and then we all know he's going to play rook f2 or rook d2.
No, he accepted it on the last move. I don't think it's going to go too much longer.
We'll see. He's definitely harboring some hidden desire, maybe to play a4 or something, but who is he kidding, you know? There we go. And offer a draw.
Yeah. Man, Jeffrey's a wall. I mean, his opening's a wall,
unbeatable.
and he's a wall.
He really is so solid when he wants to be, but then he's played some brilliant attacking games as well. So the score then is 2-1 going into the last game where Sam will be black. Another 5-minute break to let the players catch their breaths.
Yeah.
Any predictions, David, for that last game?
A draw?
Pretty good guess.
Yeah, it just seems like Jeffrey's almost unbeatable with this mode he's in.
Yeah, especially, I mean, with the white pieces.
He stays active. He's willing to give and take. He flows with the game.
It's something that, you know, I've noticed with the rise of this young generation. It always used to be the case where even the young GMs were very volatile. You know, they'd have a great tournament and then a disastrous tournament. Then you look at people like Firouzja, Jeffery. They're so solid. They're like old Russian men. But they've inherited the good aspects of that while also being fearsome tacticians.
Yep.
Thanks, Bobert.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't really seen a weakness from Jeffery yet today. Has he played any move that just looked bad to us? Not really. I mean, F6, we didn't like that game.
Yeah.
F6 in that Berlin game was one move that looked bad to both of us.
Yes,
Didn't
agreed.
really
I
seem
think
to
it took the foot off the gas pedal somehow. But Sam is also, there's a downside to he's also very solid. But when you have to play a must-win game, it can be hard, you know, and you're playing a very solid repertoire against which there are lines that basically draw. All of a sudden, playing an opening like the King's Indian is not really on the table.
Right. I mean, he could do it just to test what he's got for the Olympiad. But I think most likely in the Olympiad, you never really know that much that you're in a must-win situation as black if you go into a match, because you're in a team format, right? Like 4 boards, you got white on other boards. So, or actually, the format for this Olympiad is different. It's a 6-board match each time. Two players with no restrictions, 1 player who has to be a junior, 2 players who have to be female, and 1 player who has to be female and a junior. So 6 players. So you've got 3 whites. In general, you rarely start a match thinking I need to win with black. You might want to play an opening that lets you play for wins or draws depending on how the match goes.
Right, that's absolutely true.
But it'd be unlikely to go into a match with black like I gotta play the King's Indian even though I never play it or something, right? Like,
well, one interesting thing some people might find Interesting is that in team tournaments, you are allowed, when you're offered a draw, normally you're allowed to consult with your team captain during a match. And and I exercised that rule once. I had a game in that same World Team Championship. We were playing Hungary, and my opponent, I was black against 2670, and I equalized with black and Aray Lopez. And first, I offered him a draw, and he got up. I could tell he was about to accept, but his team captain vetoed it and was basically like, "We're not doing well on the other boards." So he played a couple more moves. Then he offered me a draw, and I got up and consulted with my team captain. I am John Donaldson, and we agreed that there was no reason not to take the draw because the team was still doing well, and I think we won that match. So it's an interesting little wrinkle.
Yeah, this double rook ending at the end, I'm sure John or any other captain would have said sure.
Right, exactly.
Take a draw. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. So here we go. The table has been set and the final game is underway. We got an English from Mr. Jeffery. Yeah, Jeffery is just an absolute rock. He's deciding here what to do. There's E4, there's D4. This is a Caro-Kann. Whoops, not D3. A Caro-Kann, so we'll see.
Yeah. Trying everything out. Good practice.
Maybe C5 here. Immobilizing black's pawn structure. I wonder if that's a novelty. C4, C6, C5. You think that's a not? Has anybody ever come up with this genius move before?
Depends on the database.
I used to.
If it's an online database, they've got all kinds of insane mouse slips in the sort of opening.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah. I used to be like obsessed with the concept of playing Queen A4 in a position like this to stop D5. And that is a move in certain variations where like you force black to take with the queen, but it's so artificial.
Yeah.
Well, Jeffery has spent over a minute here, so clearly he is considering all of these weird moves. And he might end up playing something like E3 or knight F3, something cagey, B3. I know he has a penchant for that sometimes.
Yeah, this is surprising.
Yeah, I think it might be time to make a move. What do you think? They're one move in.
You're like, we know the best move is D4. You just put your pawns in the center when you can.
Well, Bobby, maybe F4, the English bird. Okay, E4.
Okay.
Here's E4. Whoa, and now a pre-move. Now he's catching up.
Well,
so we've got by transposition, we've got a Caro-Kann pawn variation, and G6 by Sam is one of the main lines, knight C6 being the most popular. So what black does here is he sacks the pawn, hopefully temporarily, and then gets his knight around to B6. But sometimes that sacrifice becomes permanent.
Yeah. It's hard to catch up with Sam on the clock in this kind of thing because Sam did play the Caro-Kann and is well prepared.
Extremely well prepared.
So.
Knight A6, he's probably going to C7.
I think it would probably be good for Sam to play this game as if it were kind of a must-win game.
Right.
Like just as something else to prepare. Because literally within this match, it is. And you've already practiced, playing 3 games kind of normally. Maybe try a different mindset just to practice another situation.
Correct. So, Jeffery with the decision to make, does he take the queen? I wouldn't necessarily be inclined to do so because, that opens up the A file.
Either way, you have to figure out what you want to do about knight b4, with or without queens. That's going to be
correct.
That's going to be the move that Sam's playing for with this queen b6 move. After white invests the time in putting the bishop on d5, so I guess his plan is to allow the queen trade knight b4 and then just castle and not worry about c2. His knight's defending the d4 pawn.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's going to be a problem already. I can anticipate winning this game in such an endgame because with that pawn on d5 being securely fastened, I just don't see Sam winning.
Right.
But we'll see. Anything can happen.
as soon as we develop the bishop to f5, there's an important move, d6,
Yes.
that all our viewers should be aware of. And opening the a file kind of exacerbates that. Like if I try trading queens, playing knight b4, white castles, and then I play bishop f5, you know, maybe trying to make bishop c2 or knight c2 better. After d6, my whole position falls apart for black, I believe, because of bishop b7 and rook a7 coming in.
Right. So here d6, giving up that pawn for the other pawn. That's one good thing about having an extra pawn is, you know, you forget sometimes that you can give it up at the right moment for the right kind of advantages. It's a bargaining chip. You know, it's not just extra material. It's not just dead weight.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sam acquiescing to the queen trade, going rook d8, and he's going to go hunting for this pawn. But as we've established, knight f4 is a hugely important defensive resource. Now, one thing Sam might do is meet knight f4 with g5. Like Jeffery has to account for that, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've played g5 in this variation previously.
Ooh, d6 here almost works. Like ed rook takes a6, but there's rook takes d6.
Mm-hmm. Rook takes d6. Oh, yeah,
it's pretty close though.
Preserving the structure.
Right.
On knight f4, knight b4, then he's got the idea of even if you castle, playing knight c2 and knight takes d4. Oh, but there's rook a4 to cover it. So it's
That's
a complicated line again, huh?
It is.
Because then you get into bishop
it gets
d7
very messy.
And it gets super messy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what Sam wants, is something that's messy. You know, I'm thinking that Jeffery could still play d6, rook d6 and bishop f4, rook b6 and then just castle, and he's got, you know, he's got a clamp down on black's pieces and its development. So, you know, I think it's probably in the realm of dynamic equality, this position.
How about this weird fork? d6, rook d6, knight b5.
Oh my goodness.
And then rook takes a6.
That's hilarious. Rook a6. And then rook takes b5.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work. Yeah. I would have been more excited if it worked, but it's still pretty funny to see the rooks forked by knight c7 and they can't communicate.
Yeah, so somebody asked about dynamic equality. It's like I would say equality in an unbalanced position. So like both sides have different chances, but, you know. One sec. But yeah, that's what it basically means. They weigh each other down. Okay, so what is going on? The bishop g5. Okay, so he's, well, potentially wants to take the knight on f6, eliminating one of the attackers of the d5 pawn.
Right. Or after some wholesale trades on d5, just play bishop takes e7.
Mm-hmm.
Or hit black with like a d6 tactic at some point with you know, d6, ed6, knight d5 in some case. So black really has to keep rook d6 viable.
Right. Correct.
The players are not competing for any money. They're competing to raise money for their team. So this is a service they're trying to do for the whole team. And here's the link again to the GoFundMe for the U.S. Olympiad team. So no, they're not standing to win any money here. They're trying to help the whole team come together in a year that, you know, many normal supports are gone.
Right. Crazy times indeed. So we're all doing our best, and I'm excited for the Online Olympiad. It's, you know, it's not the same, and the Olympiad is the tournament that, and I speak for I think quite a few people. It's, to me, it's the most fascinating. So just watching all those players from all those countries. First of all, it's heartwarming, in many cases, to see chess players in very difficult circumstances in their own countries, but able to make it out and play in the Olympiad, and they often play their hearts out. It's you know, truly a moving, you know, very, very inspiring thing.
Yeah.
But also just watching people like Magnus go through the grinder and playing, you know, sometimes underrated grandmasters from, you know, various countries, and these grandmasters might not have gotten as many invites to tournaments. So it pits super GMs against regular GMs, and I'm very partial to that, of course.
Yeah.
yes, the Online Olympiad is also rapid. It's the same time control they're playing here, 15+5.
Yeah, I think I remember Pascal Charbonneau from Canada winning a game against Anand
Yep,
in an
Turin,
Olympiad once, right?
2006. Yeah, it was just that was a very good game too.
That's just a pretty exciting kind of thing to have.
Well, Carlsen lost in like 25 moves to Sigurov, I think, in either Tromsø or Hanti-Mansijsk. That was several years ago.
Right.
And I remember there was this shock, wow.
Yeah.
And Carlsen, I think, lost 2 games that Olympiad.
That was his bad Olympiad. He kind of went crazy there. He played like E4, G6, D4, Knight F6 against
the North
Adams
Sea defense.
Something like E5, Knight H5, some abomination.
And he beat Adams, right?
He escaped. No.
Oh, he drew.
He escaped the opening and then lost anyway. I think that's what happened.
Oh, right. Yes.
It was like his tilt didn't manage to kill him, but then he actually legitimately lost from an okay position.
Right.
To Adams,
yeah, exactly.
Which is just even worse, right? If he
That is just beyond tilting, yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, like I love obviously seeing the upsets and stuff and cheering for the US team. They of course were the gold medalists last year. And
this year they'll be the 3rd seed behind Russia and China.
The women's Olympiad also fascinating with, of course, some incredibly strong teams composed of just 4 GMs like China, I think.
Yeah.
Russia.
And supposedly the sort of like real, OTB Olympiad with full teams and classical time controls from 2020 is being delayed till 2021, and this is sort of like a rapid version of the Olympiad, different format, but allowing lots of people to play games. Anyway, we should get back into this position because probably again it's interesting. White's up 2 doubled isolated pawns. It seems like Black's not threatening to win back the pawn anytime soon. Sorry, White's not up 2 pawns. He's up 1 pawn, but he has double
right. But I understood your point. Yeah, I mean, the pawn on d5 is, as we discussed, very secure. Yeah. It's hard to get to, right? But on the other hand, White also struggles to make progress. Jeffery might be threatening knight a4 though. Like knight a4, and if knight d5, then knight b6 in the end. So welcome, Grandmaster Hess. Yeah. So, but knight a4 maybe. How does Sam stop that actually?
Yeah, I thought that maybe here he was going to give up on pressuring the d pawn and just play knight e8, knight d6 to leave bishop f3 blocked and be able to develop his c8 bishop eventually. Because right now the d6 move is just hanging over that bishop, but if you never move that bishop, then I don't know. The queen side looks awkward for Black.
Yeah, I was thinking like knight e8. There might be knight a4 anyway. And then there's some complicated lines there. It's one of those things where I think maybe from an objective perspective, Black is fine. But White's got all of these ideas. Like, I guess Sam wants knight a4, bishop d6. But it's flimsy, there's something flimsy about it.
So knight a6? White could still play knight c5, right?
Right. Yeah, but after knight a4, bishop d6, if you go knight c5, then I go b6.
Oh, sorry, bishop d6, yeah.
Yeah. I think, knight a6, I agree. That knight c5 is very strong.
Okay, knight a4, bishop d6, yeah. Oh.
G3.
You know what would even be a candidate in that kind of position, Danya, would be b4 from White after b6.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, establishing that c5 square.
Just kind of like parking it there. Because, as you mentioned, I used to play the Benoni, and sometimes, sometimes they sack a piece on d6, and then in the fianchetto lines, and then you can't deal with
the avalanche, of pawns.
Diagonal. So, be interesting. I mean, White wouldn't really be threatening anything, but he's keeping Black from moving anybody.
Yeah, no, I think Jeffrey's better here. And I mean, bishop f4, it cripples White's pawn structure even further, but at the tremendous cost of positional concessions, and
Mm-hmm.
Black's whole position is just creaking and squeaking here.
Right. By now, anytime we try for knight e8, knight b5 looks good enough for white.
Yep. Knight f4 is an excellent move by Jeffery.
Yeah.
So we'll see what.
Yeah. Plus, that was white's worst piece.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's a good way to deal with it.
If it goes to d3 at some point, it's got all kinds of prospects.
Yeah, e5, c5. So, and any tiniest motion like b6, as we've already established, creates more weaknesses. So, at the very least, I think this is almost a guaranteed draw for Jeffery. Not to jinx him, but yeah, I don't see him winning this.
I'm surprised Sam's clock isn't bleeding because it's seeming really hard to play.
Yeah, and I mean, he doesn't seem like he's anywhere near making a move. So my guess is he's going to spend a very good amount of time on this position.
Maybe bishop d7 is possible now.
Yeah. And then maybe knight d3.
Right, and then I'm thinking to maybe play knight b5 for Sam.
Uh-huh.
I mean, not because I've got some brilliant idea, just because I'm trying to move a piece.
Right, and then if I take and go knight c5. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's all in the realm of being unpleasant for Black without truly being lost.
Right. Yeah, I suppose if you played that knight, that knight move looks pretty annoying. Knight c5. If I played b6, you go to b7, trade on d6, and then play rook c7 at the end. Then I have to play a5 and just keep hunkering. But then you take the e file from me too. It's like, ugh. How much can I give?
No, this is nasty for Sam. And of course, technically, it's a must-win game in terms of this match. But a reminder that they are playing a friendly match, so it's basically academic. Although, to Sam, and we've discussed this at the start, how competitive he is, and I mean that in the best possible sense. He doesn't like losing, and there's no real such thing as friendly to him. Everything is competition.
Yeah. Yeah, I may or may not have once won a blitz game at his house, and he hulked out.
Yeah. No, Sam is. Yeah, we've had some good times for sure. And he's also, I play quite a bit of blindfold on my stream, and nice. Sam is probably stronger than me in blindfold. He's an unbelievably strong blindfold chess player. And, he's very, very talented, but that all of that hard work, I think, it pays off in his calculation ability and his visualization. It's first rate. Okay, so b6, he had to make some sort of concession, and immediately knight d3 by Jeffery.
Right. Luckily, there's no knight b4 here, but unluckily, there's knight e5. And Jeffery
Heading
was ready for
c6.
this. So
now, what if takes and takes?
Yeah.
I guess knight b5 is extremely unpleasant here, and knight d6. You know what I'm saying? Like knight takes d5, knight b5, and Black might just be collapsing here.
Oh, your pawn's covering knight d6, yeah.
Now Sam has made a move. We are.
I'm impressed.
And now,
I'm impressed that Jeffery was so prepared.
He saw that, and he saw it immediately. Knight b5, not an easy move to see here.
Yeah, but
this is collapsing for Sam.
He planned it while Sam was thinking about b6, because Sam thought for 4 minutes on b6, and he just played knight d3 instantly, as well as all this whole follow-up.
That's another quality that I'm always impressed by, is people who are able to spend efficiently the time that their opponent is thinking on, rather than, I don't know, thinking about various dating apps and, one success rate on them, or another 15 million things that circle around in your head.
Yeah. This looks over. It looks over, but
It does. This is just a knife. It's a knife.
I'm just shocked at Jeffery having been that confident and prepared there.
He's so good. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He is so freaking good. And Sam, you can see in his face leaning back, the Michaela Maroney not impressed twist of the lips.
Yikes.
Okay, nobody. That's an old reference. It was big news back in 2012. That was my last good year, and then it's all been downhill since then.
2012.
Yeah, somewhere thereabouts.
Oh man, I don't even see a move anymore. I don't see a move anymore. You always find a way to resist a little bit longer, Danya.
I mean, maybe rook a b8,
Okay.
then takes a7. No, but that's over.
Okay.
Okay, so wait a second. But now rook takes c8, rook takes c8, and knight d6. I think that ends it. If bishop takes c8, we go rook d1, bishop e6, knight c3 resigns. So it is all but official.
Yeah.
Just a few things, and Jeffery is going to win. And we see rook takes c8 on the board, rook d1 on the board, and we anticipate resignation from Sam. What a match by Jeffery. Incredibly well played.
Yeah.
And Sam resigned. So 3-1 the final score. The friendly match concludes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
That was painful.
Jeffrey, can you hear us as well? Maybe we can ask Jeffrey to unmute himself.
We'll give him a minute. He'll probably rejoin us volume-wise in a sec.
Yeah, I can hear you guys now.
Yep. Cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so Sam summed it up as painful. How was that for you?
Yeah, I think certainly both of us would hope to have done much better in some moments.
Even you?
Yeah, I mean, I felt, game 2 for sure was not my best game, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, I mean, I managed to be worse with white against the alapin in 10 moves, and I lost some absolutely fine endgame in 3 moves. So, I managed to just miscalculate everything, and I somehow didn't mate him in game 2 when maybe I couldn't have, but it certainly felt like I should have.
I think it might have actually been zeros the whole way through, believe it or not.
Okay.
We didn't see anything specific during the commentary.
Yeah. No, it felt like I had to be mating, but with no time I couldn't find it, and maybe it just wasn't there. But this last one was just horrible. I mean, black is very comfortable, and I just messed up 3 moves. I blundered knight b5, and it's already just lost.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys someone's asking why this final position was lost. It's because the knight on d5 can't move, and white's going to attack it again after bishop e6, knight c3, or something like that. I'll be lost.
But I don't think there's anything else. I mean, I just blundered knight b5, and after that, I think it's completely finished. I mean, maybe I can play better than rook a8, but if the knight comes to d6, I should lose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you guys, what do you think of the idea of picking one of the 4 games and you two just do a post-mortem on it together and we all just watch and listen?
Yeah, that's fine. Jeffrey, you have a preference on which game we choose?
I guess maybe the second game, or?
Yeah, that one felt the most interesting to me, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, so how should we do that? You want to just make an analysis board and I'll
make an analysis board and then invite both of you to it.
Yeah. Okay.
So now I gotta just invite you guys. So
Jeffrey, I was just gonna ask you, what happened with this bishop h6 in game one? It didn't, because obviously I knew you didn't want to make this move, but I didn't think it was like an obvious mouse slip either. I couldn't tell what move you did want to make.
Yeah, I have this habit sometimes of drawing arrows when I'm looking at, calculating a variation.
Oh, I see.
So I was drawing some arrow with knight h6, bishop h6, and I just.
Can I interrupt? Sorry,
Yeah.
are we already like analyzing?
no, I'm.
Oh, not yet. Okay. They were just okay.
Yeah, because I was just very confused. I mean, I didn't know what to do, but I guess we managed to solve the problem.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, you actually can't do normal takebacks on chess.com. So if the mouse slip were like capture or something, there would be nothing.
Yeah, so be careful with those arrows. I'm glad this happens here and not in the actual Olympiad.
Yeah, absolutely. I stopped with the arrows immediately after.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff to practice.
So, David, can you invite me to an analysis board or something?
I've tried. I should have sent all of you invites to
Yep,
this analysis.
I just got it.
Oh, okay, I see. I was in the wrong one. Okay, so can you invite me?
Do I need to be on live chess?
Yeah, you would need to be in live chess still.
Yeah, because it immediately went to analysis. Yeah, right. So this one here.
That's Sam again.
Yeah, okay, so I guess, Jeffrey, this was the first serious moment, right?
Yeah, okay. There's many ways for black to play.
Yeah, but I felt like this seemed to make sense. Unless you can e4 me here, which I don't think you can, right?
Yeah, true.
I mean, because I thought this made a lot of sense to remain flexible with which knight with whether to play e5 or c5. I mean, yeah, like here I thought rook e8 was actually pretty clever because, but I was surprised by rook b1. What was the point of this move?
I think in general, after rook b1, I expected c5, but I wanted to play for a4, a5, but I just was never really in time for that.
That's slow. Yeah, and you play c5 if I do this, right?
Yeah, that was my intention. I think it's still not that clear.
It should be a draw, right? Take, we get something like this. I thought this was going to draw, but...
yeah, something like this. I wasn't actually sure.
I mean,
no. Wait. This, I thought you would take on f3, because here, can I take on h7?
Oh, well, you can do that however you want, right? I mean, so you thought I would take f3 like in this position?
Yeah.
And something like this? Yeah. I saw this. I thought maybe you're a little bit better here, though.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, I prefer what you did, much, because I prefer black, actually.
After c5, I was already thinking black should be better. Because I couldn't figure out what white was doing, and my plan felt very natural. Could you have played knight e5 here? I didn't think so.
Yeah, I thought about knight e5.
So is this the idea, or what?
Yeah, this is in the air.
I thought this was tough for white to deal with, and...
Yeah, actually, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. I was trying to figure out what was going on here, but... Like, if BC, I think bishop h7 is pretty good for you. But, I don't know, maybe I can just play bishop a6 or something, which looks extremely stupid, but if it works, it's very powerful, right?
So, what if I take on d7?
Oh, yeah, that's a good move, yeah. And we get something like this, and now my bishop is stuck. Yeah, no, this is just not good. Yeah. No, I thought you sort of had to go for this, though, because if I get queen c7, I mean, it felt really bad, I thought. But maybe I overestimated my position.
I think also I consider something like this. This is a simple way for you.
Yeah, and then here I'm absolutely fine, of course. I was just wondering if I could do better than that.
No, but you should be slightly better here.
Yeah, bishop e2, knight f4, yeah?
Yeah, I thought I should probably try to simplify.
Yeah.
Hold the endgame. Takes
Won't be
6.
much fun, yeah. And, oh, you would even do the bishop versus knight. You wouldn't even save your bishop?
No, yeah, you're probably right. I should play
Well,
some.
but where though? Because bishop c3, there is knight f4.
Yeah, so a1.
Yeah, but even here, like if I play like e5, for example, this could actually get really ugly for white really fast, right?
No, I agree with you. Yeah, that's why I didn't.
Yeah, so rook fe1, I think I sort of have no choice, right? Because you're threatening e4 now, right?
Yeah, queen c7 has to be correct.
Yeah, and here after rook bc1, g6, when you played knight e4, had you already decided to sacrifice an exchange or no?
No. I blundered this idea from you.
Man. Yeah, but what the problem is, what else does white do? Like my next move is c takes d4 followed by e5, and then it's super uncomfortable, I think.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find a move for white. I mean, maybe you have to do this anyway, but yeah. I mean, at first I thought I was just winning here, but then once you found this exchange sacrifice, it's not nearly as easy as I was anticipating. I don't know, but yeah. Maybe I should have played e5 though. This was occurring to me right after I took the rook. I was wondering maybe if I should have done this and tried to play something a bit simpler.
Wait, but what is this? So if I take,
and then knight takes e5, and basically play with a good pawn structure instead of an extra exchange.
Ah, okay, I see.
But I was concerned about rook cd1, and I can take this, and I don't think you can take with the knight because of bishop h2, but maybe you can play like g3 or something, and I'm probably a bit better here, but I don't think it's that amazing.
Yeah, actually I like g3.
Yeah,
I think it's not that easy for you.
I guess I play knight e5, or no, then knight d4, knight d3. I feel like I should be slightly better, but probably nothing special, right?
Yeah, this doesn't look clear to me.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's okay, but
yeah, I think you should just take, but not king g7.
Yeah, what were you planning? What do you think I should do instead?
I expected b5 sooner or later.
b5 directly. Okay. Yeah, I thought about that as well here, but
I was going c5.
Yeah, I thought I should at least improve my position a little before committing to b5. I wasn't worried about like you playing a4 or something, so I thought I could wait. But yeah, here, I mean, shouldn't I be a bit worried about queen h6? Like, I have to play a6, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about some e5 move.
Yeah, e5 directly here already.
Yeah, just trying to see, but it looks too messy.
Yeah, wait, hang on, what happens now? Takes, and then... No, I don't think this works. Knight c5, ef6, and there will be queen h6.
Yeah, okay.
I saw something similar in the game. Not in this exact position, but I thought king g7 made sense, but did you consider playing queen h4 here? This one
no, not really, but yeah, now that I see it, I probably should have.
Yeah, because when I had first done this, I thought I could play g5, but then I was realizing that you have bishop a3 check here. And now I lose after rook e7 and check. But here, of course, I don't have to suicide like that. I mean, I can play queen d8, for example, but then queen g3 comes, and I didn't think this was so easy for me.
Yeah, it felt like it's already sufficient compensation. That's why.
Yeah, in a practical game, I certainly don't think you're worse here. I mean, maybe in classical you would be, but in rapid, no way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because after queen e3, b5, now I was very happy. I thought I got b5 at like the exact right moments when I will get knight d5 in, and at this point I thought I should be doing very well, but I somehow couldn't put it away.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that I should have at least gone to d2, not e3.
Why is that?
I mean, just to save a tempo with against knight d5.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, queen e3 feels very out of place. It also runs into knight g4 in various positions. So, yeah, but this was a spot, like, so on queen d2, queen f4, and Yeah, so here, this is where I went for it, and I thought I was working here. I mean, I thought I had to try, but the problem was I couldn't find another move. I wasn't convinced rook c3 would work, but what else can I play?
Yeah, I figured that was your problem. Yeah, the problem is you can't move the knight on d7.
I want knight 7 b6, but knight e5, and the knight gets to c6, and then I'm definitely not better anymore. All right.
Yeah, this was a little bit strange, actually.
Rook c3, you mean?
No. I mean, just the position in general.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should have gone and played like g5 or made some patient move instead and asked you for a move, because it's not clear what white's doing either, but...
Yeah, I was going queen b3, a4, a5, if you pass.
That's perfectly sensible. I mean... I don't know. I just couldn't find a plan other than going for this, and it felt like it should work, but I couldn't find a way through. But what if I play knight b6? I mean, what if I do this? Because I was also considering this and rook c2, sacrificing.
Yeah, same. So if I take in rook f1.
Yeah. And so rook f1, and I couldn't find a way through here. I'm going to queen d2 maybe.
But the problem is I have the
queen a7. I'm going to get mated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought if I'm going to be sacrificing anyway, I might as well go rook c3, because I certainly I'm not risking anything, but I don't know. Daniel, did you have a brilliant idea here?
Actually, no, we were struggling with much the same problem, like finding a move knight b6, but yeah, I don't see anything super concrete.
Danya thought you might be able to move the knight, and then after knight e5, go queen d2 to b4.
Queen d2, yeah. Queen d2 is the idea.
So what happens after queen d2, knight c6?
Queen takes c1, check.
That's a good move.
Good question, Sam. Good question.
Yeah. If I had seen that, I would have definitely done this, because I had seen queen d2, I had to b4, and I had just completely missed that the rook is hanging.
Right. Yeah, and once you play queen b4, once the queens are off, I feel like there's.
Then I'm just much better, right? Knight c6, I play a6. What do I care? I mean, yeah, this is... No, this was the way, and this should win then.
Although, no, but wait, if I go knight f3?
Then queen b4, right?
Takes.
Oh, and you get d5 through?
Oh, yeah, but d5, king g8? Just king g8, I think.
Yeah, it's not even close. The bishop is hanging. You cannot take up on it. Yeah, so this would have won. I missed that the rook is hanging. What a knucklehead I am.
Wow, nice, Danya. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I found queen takes c1 check. I think I deserve a spot in the 2021 Olympic team already.
Yeah, you might be better than that. Better for me than me for that. I mean, I'm a great chess player, but I'm not too great at rapid. I'm not too great at online. When you put them together, you know.
Oh, I'm not sure I'm proud of my prowess there. I've spent too much time.
Yeah. But okay, this was still very interesting. Like, so we got some business like this, and at first here I wanted to actually take on f3. But then I noticed that you have queen e5 check and queen e4. And here I think you get away.
Yeah, this is always... probably just better now,
So you might, I would think, completely winning, right? This queen gets to g3, I'm never going to give mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean, this one I thought had to crash through, but okay, I mean, if you play rook takes h3, I think it will be a draw, yeah?
Yeah, no, actually, I didn't think I was at risk, even from the start.
This is perpetual immediately, right?
Wait, but why don't you take on h3?
I don't know. I could.
Okay.
This is also immediately perpetual, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even close. Yeah, but no. So at this point, but yeah, here, why king g2 instead of king g1?
Yeah, this was a little bit careless. Fortunately, I think it doesn't change the result, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to play knight d3 anyway, and I still thought knight f4 was coming, and I mean, I thought I could never be worse, and I might be giving mates, but...
Yeah, this might be forced, though, like rook g2,
Is that only move, or what? So
maybe.
Knight f4?
Make a check.
And then here, and then we'll get the same queen c7 or something?
No, but now I have rook g4.
Oh, I see the points. So I have to play f6 here then or something, and then it's a draw, yeah?
I would just go queen e1, queen h4.
Oh, yeah. Okay, then just be an adult that way. That makes sense. Can I play knight e1 now?
I think that's not gonna end well.
Yeah,
So
queen e5, rook g3, yeah?
yeah.
Yeah, that'll do it. Yeah, so... No, because after king g2, I mean, here I was almost certain that I'm giving mate, but I couldn't find a way.
Yeah, we couldn't either.
Was king f1 only move, or what?
Yeah, it might be actually. It might be.
Yeah, I mean, if you find king f1 only move and get through this, then you deserve to beat me, but... Well, draw this game and beat me overall, but... Yeah, this one I couldn't find a way to avoid the perpetual.
Queen c7 was nice. Not the only move.
And king g8, queen b8, yeah?
I was thinking king g8, queen d8.
Just
followed by
hope
queen takes h4, yeah.
Given the way I played today, if I can't see queen takes e1, maybe I won't see queen takes d8 either. But yeah, this...
Well, that was a fascinating game.
Yeah, sorry guys, I wish I could have played better today, but you know. Well,
Not at all.
If I get all of my blunders out here before the Olympiad starts, and Jeffrey gets all of his bishop h6 out here before the Olympiad starts, and before somebody quickly plays knight takes h6 and then you can't possibly take it back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we can make all of this nonsense here, that would be perfect, and then we can go kill everybody when it really counts.
You'll have proved that training is better than not training.
Yeah,
the famous Pythagorean chess theorem, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure commentating the match. So thank you, Sam and Jeffrey, for the awesome games.
Yeah, thanks, guys. This was fun. I'm disappointed the way I played, but it was a delight to play with you, Jeffrey, and I look forward to being your teammate in this upcoming tournament.
Thank you. Same.
All right. Awesome.
Fantastic.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for being here and watching. Especially thanks to anybody who is supporting the U.S. team with a donation, which I think Sam and Jeffrey have really earned here today for their teammates. Good to see Ray in the chat cheering on his teammates. And yeah, thanks everybody for doing this. And Danya, fun hanging out with you.
Indeed. Likewise, David. Yeah, very interesting match. I always love watching, top American players duke it out. There might not be anything on the line, but, they're both putting in a lot of effort. And we saw just how many complications and fascinating back and forth games there were. So I'll definitely be cheering Sam and Jeffrey on during the Olympiad, and appreciate the chance to commentate. And yeah, it was a pleasure, David.
Oh, Jeffrey, there was one question that I should ask you that came up in the chat a number of times, and we didn't know the answer to it. When does the U.S. start playing in the Olympiad? When is your first match?
I believe it's on the 19th, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But yeah, I should check that.
Okay. So about a week away till you guys enter the competition. Good luck with your training and with your matches.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Good luck. Thanks, Jeffrey. All right.
That's it.
Well,
Danya, you're probably going to play another 3 hours.
I'll play just a little bit, and then I'll probably hit the sack. Yeah.
All right.
Just a couple of games. Now I'm inspired, of course. I can't just leave, but
yeah, when you see people play well, it's like, oh, let me try.
You gotta jump in.
Let me try.
You gotta jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, this was a lot of fun, David. I appreciate the chance to do it, and I anticipate us doing stuff for sure in the near future.
Cool. And we're gonna raid over to your channel with our remaining viewers here, so you guys can watch. You can watch Danya under the effects of inspiration.
Indeed. And I'll make sure all of my viewers follow your channel, and I'll talk about what you and Jesse and Costa do as well. So thank you, David. I appreciate it, and cool. We'll be in touch then.
Absolutely.
Thanks again.
Cheers, everybody.
All right.